Okay, everyone, welcome to the Wednesday midday midweek edition. It is the post-election day edition of Reality Check here on the home of Black Talk Media. It's none other than WURD 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. Welcome to the program. Hope everyone is doing okay, or at least a little well rested. You didn't stay up too late last night or in the early morning hours. I'm Charles Ellison. I'm your host, executive producer, creator of Reality Check, your daily dose of public affairs here on WURD. You can catch me on Twitter.com, at Ellison Report on Twitter.com. Also, hashtag Reality Check, and continue to look for updates for analysis and news at hashtag Word on Politics. How's everyone doing? Good to talk with you. Let's just go ahead and get the program started at the top. We've got a very busy program ahead of us today, this morning, for good reason. Things are still in limbo as far as the what's been decided or what will be decided in the presidential race. Obviously, everyone keeping a very close eye on the presidential race between incumbent Donald Trump and also Joe Biden. Also keeping an eye on where things might swing as far as the U.S. Senate, and we're looking at a number of other races as well, looking at state legislative chambers, et cetera. So, you know, we were presenting the full map to you last night, and I really appreciate folks listening in to our special election edition last night, which I was anchoring, and we had a number of analysts come on, and we're trying to unpack things. Obviously, people were hoping for some sort of resolution, some sort of finality to this, especially the presidential election last night. That did not happen, and so a number of states, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later on in the program, but some states, particularly key battleground states, have not been decided yet. Votes are being counted, so now we're going through the vote counting phase, and we'll see what happens from here, and we'll just try to cover it and help you navigate it as best we can. Joining us now this morning is Congressman Anthony Brown. He represents Maryland's 4th Congressional District. That's part of the suburban Washington, D.C. area. Go to, for more information on him, go to anthonybrown.house.gov. If you'd like to learn more about him and what he's up to. He's also on social media at Rep. Anthony Brown. He joins us by phone here on Reality Check as part of our weekly conversations with the Congressional Black Caucus. Congressman, how are you doing this morning? Good morning to you.
Charles, I'm doing fine. Feeling a little bit better at this very moment than when I turned it in last night, which was probably around, or this morning, about 1 a.m. You know, listen, I'm glad that the voting itself is behind us. And, you know, Americans have come out in large, perhaps historically record numbers. And now, you know, we've got a little bit of counting left to do. Pennsylvania certainly is, all eyes are on Pennsylvania. You got a lot of work to do there. But, you know, I'm confident that it's been an orderly process. And I'm also guardedly optimistic that the outcome is going to favor Vice President Biden.
Well, you know, specifically, let's talk just a little bit about that. What's specifically right now in this late vote count phase, and what you're saying as you're looking at the whole map? What's making you feel a bit optimistic as far as Joe Biden's chances? And even, I don't know if you're looking at those Senate, I'm sure you're looking at those Senate races as well, but just focus on the presidential race. Arizona was called by Associated Press. That did happen overnight, so that became official. And I know that was supposed to be a bit of a pathway for President Trump that he was hoping for, he was relying on. That didn't happen, and that offered some cushion to Joe Biden. But what's making you feel optimistic right now?
Yeah, and what's making me feel optimistic is what we've seen probably in the last, I think, 2 hours, where Wisconsin, well, none of these are called, right? Battlegrounds, Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, Michigan, nothing's called. But, you know, you now see Joe Biden taking the lead in Wisconsin, just recently taking the lead in Michigan. But the important is to look at how and why and where he's taking the lead. So what you're seeing in Wisconsin, Michigan, and in Pennsylvania is that the outstanding votes, those votes that have been cast, you know, in a timely manner, that are yet to be counted and will be counted, are coming from the larger urban centers in those 3 states. Right? Philadelphia, there's a huge number of vote by mail or absentee ballots that are yet to be counted. We know that that Biden is doing better in Philadelphia. We know that a large majority of those votes are Democratic votes, which, correlates to a Biden vote, not 100%. But so you see things like that. So I'm feeling good about Pennsylvania. President Trump has a wider margin there. There's more ground to have to cover and close. But if Pennsylvania is like Michigan and Wisconsin, then I think Vice President Biden will very well win Pennsylvania as well. So I think it's where the Detroit, right? Still a lot of votes left to be counted in Detroit, right? Large African American voter block. Milwaukee in Wisconsin, large African American voter blocks. So where the votes are yet to be counted are in those precincts where you have high Democratic, particularly African American voters who, in this election, are certainly breaking for Vice President Biden.
What is this saying about the race being so tight? Because I know that makes Democrats, rank and file Democrats, feel very disappointed and upset that this race is now as tight as it is. People were hoping for a landslide. People were hoping for a landslide to make some sort of moral statement. They were hoping for a resounding thrubbing of Donald Trump to act as a sort of collective American repudiation of what's been transpiring over the past several years. It didn't work out like that last night, because now here we are. It's still, and we did warn a lot of our listeners, hey, this is not going to be election day or election night. It's going to be election week, and we need to see it that way. What does that say about how tight it is? What's sort of based on what you're saying, Congressman? And you've served in theater and the military as well, so you got some experience, kind of like looking at different, the moods and sentiments of different population groups. But, what do you think's going on here? Why this is so tight as it is, even after all that's been transpiring, especially with the pandemic and the mismanagement of it over the past year?
Yeah, look, I think you still have a very divided nation, and made worse by President Trump. Sort of capitalizing on every crisis that we face to use it as an opportunity to divide Americans, right? I mean, the murder of George Floyd, opportunity for a president to bring us together around a racial reckoning. Now he used it to divide. A pandemic, goodness, you would think that, hey, this is a virus that knows no boundaries. And while you see higher infection rates and death rates in communities of color, the virus itself doesn't discriminate. There's an opportunity to bring us together as Americans, and he chooses to use this to divide us by party, right? Of choosing, Democratic governors of mismanagement and Republican governors of sort of looking out for the interests of the American people. So this is we are continue to be a divided nation, but I do think that what we are seeing in these results is a reason to be hopeful that under a Biden presidency, we can begin this healing, this effort to unite the country. I mean, Arizona, right? We flip Arizona, and that hasn't happened in a long time. Georgia in play. Who knows how Georgia will end up, but that it's in play where, it hasn't been for such a long time. I think the last president that won Georgia was Bill Clinton. And so I think there are signs there that Americans are very exhausted by this president, that they recognize that he's been divisive. But what's, I guess, disappointing is, as your question is going to the heart of, is I think many of us expected that disappointment to be reflected in much bigger numbers for Vice President Biden. And I do think that you have some voters, many perhaps, who are actually voting against their interest. If you're voting in your interest, which is, hey, my interest is to protect my family against the pandemic, I'm not sure why you could vote for Donald Trump.
Right. Let's talk about let's talk about those voters voting against their interests, because, you're a congressman representing the majority black county of Prince George's County, right outside of Washington, D.C. So we know, confidently Democrats can say, okay, hey, this was a county that was in our column. Didn't work out so well in a in a gubernatorial race about a couple of years ago,
right?
but you can
2014 to be exact.
right. You can confidently say that hey, things worked out at least for Democrats here in Prince George's County. But you look at these, and I'm sure you've seen some of this exit polling data as far as how the black vote performed and the Latino vote too, but how that performed in 2020, and just some really. I would think some troubling numbers. An increase in the number of black, slight increase in the number of black voters who ended up supporting Trump or voting for Trump last night or up to last night compared to 2016. In fact, and we can have that breakdown by black men and black women by gender as well. But overall, you having 87% of black voters supporting Biden, 12% for Donald Trump, 66% of Latino voters for Biden, 32% for Trump. But I'm looking at these black men and black women numbers. Black male support for Trump spiked a bit, 18% now in 2020 compared to 13% in 2016. That's like a 5 percentage point increase, 80%. I know we're saying don't blame black women. Even like black women support spiked several points for Trump. What's going on there? What do you think? Why even after a pandemic, even after like just back-to-back seasons of racial unrest, of the president openly telegraphing and coordinating with white nationalists, with white terrorists who are a direct existential threat to black people, and even after the policy decisions, you have this spike in black support for the president. What exactly is going on there?
So what I think is happening is, and this is where President Trump has been effective. He knows how to play on people's concerns or fears and sort of use that to deflect the attention away from his either inaction in the case of the pandemic, his indifference in the case of really, and not only indifference, is really his abuse and disregard for communities of color. And what he does essentially is he messages in a way that says, hey, let me remind you that you are a Democrat and have supported Democrats. Let me remind you that, you have higher rates of incarceration of African-American men, higher rates of unemployment. And remember, you're a Democrat. So ask yourself, what have the Democrats done to you?
Yeah.
So he gets people thinking about my affiliation, and that affiliation hasn't served me well. And what I end up doing is forgetting that he has been in the position for 4 years, in the most powerful position in the office in the world, and he has a responsibility as well. But he's been effective. He really has, and it's around the margin. I mean, you're not seeing wholesale migration to Donald Trump's camp. Certainly not by African Americans. I think you're seeing larger numbers in the Latino community, and that's even more puzzling and troubling to me, given how from even before day one on his campaign, or at least day one, his insulting and degrading comments about Mexicans. But I think that's what's happening. I think he's been effective. He has not been an effective leader. He's not been an effective president. He continues to effectively find opportunities to communicate to groups that feel some sense of either fear, anger, frustration, and he plays on that. So he saw minimal success in the black community. I mean, Vice President Biden, because of his message, continues to attract a large African American vote, and that's what's going to result in Vice President Biden winning.
How do you think
Michigan and Pennsylvania?
Yeah, how do you think Democrats counter that? However, because I mean, even if Biden were to win, Democrats recapture the Senate. How do Democrats counter that kind of messaging? What's the counter advocacy messaging operation have to be like? Because you have a lot of black voters, just black people in general, even black people who decided to tap out and not even vote. They thought voting was this negotiable conversation, like they didn't have to do it. and they just feel that jaded and disenchanted. Not giving them excuses, because I don't think there's any excuse for that, but that's just the kind of mood of some out there. And so there is this feeling like, okay, yeah, Democrats might be aligned or say they're aligned with my interests, but then they don't feel like Democrats are actually fighting,
Right.
or just going to scrap, kind of knuckling up for their interests. And I wonder what the Democratic Party kind of is going to have to do. I mean, there's a lot of work, as particularly folks like yourself and the rest of your colleagues in the Congressional Black Caucus are going to have to do to ensure that you're not having these issues, because black voters are decisive at the margins. And that's not to blame the black vote, but it definitely didn't work to Democrats' advantage over, especially last night and in the early voting. I mean, just based on the exit polling right now.
Right. So the answer to your question, it's more than messaging. Sure, you have to have the message.
Yeah.
You want to be able to deliver and have it resonate. But the answer to your question is we've got to do what we've been promising to do for decades, and we've got to make a real difference, progress and improvement in the black community. What does that mean? Like, we do have to address things like systemic racism in all quarters and corners of this country. And it's not just in the police department, and we need to pass the Justice in Policing Act, which is a substantial piece of legislation, brings greater transparency, accountability to police departments. It gives those who are harmed, killed by the police, their families, the opportunity to seek redress in civil courts, and prosecutors to do what they need to do. But it's not just the police department. It's health care. And a number of members of the Congressional Black Caucus, Robin Kelly, sort of our lead on health care. I've done a number of things in Maryland on addressing health disparities. You've got to really be laser-like focused and address health disparities that fall along racial and ethnic lines. Education. So it's really policy and outcomes that are first and foremost have to be the priority of the Democratic Party if we are really going to shore up our support. And then you can communicate. Because if we're just communicating about what we're going to do, black people are smart, and they say, hey, listen, we've been hearing this for quite some time. So if you don't want to see continued, I don't want to say erosion, right, but the drop-off that we're seeing at the margin, you got to have a robust, transformative agenda. It can't be race neutral. It's got to be very intentional to close disparities in education, the workforce. We've got to pass the Voting Rights Act, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. So that's what we need to do. And if you look at what we did in the House of Representatives in this Congress, that's the blueprint. That's the blueprint for a Biden administration. Let's get that stuff passed into law, and then we'll get the communication right to communities of color.
All right. We're talking with Congressman Anthony Brown. I know I got to let you go. I know you got a busy day and week and months ahead of you, depending on what the outcome is. And then we got that phase between election to inauguration, whomever it is. Anthony Brown House. Congressman, just your overall sense, real quick before I let you go, just your overall sense of what the mood is like, the tension in the air in the D.C. metro area. I mean, I know your district also includes Andrews Air Force Base, and so people were just kind of worried about your potential social unrest on the horizon, depending on what the outcome is. And so, how's that look? How's the area look?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're prepared. You always want to prepare for the worst, hope for the best. I think, given what we have seen thus far in this election, in the count, in the way that things seem to be trending, I'm pretty optimistic that whatever let's say public displays of frustration or protest are going to be manageable today, tomorrow, and in the future, in the next few days and weeks. Again, though, I would hope that the Republican leadership can put a lid on President Trump. I mean, I know it's impossible to do, but as he becomes more desperate, we've seen this is his modus operandi. As he becomes more desperate, and as he sees these numbers moving in favor of Vice President Biden, he's going to just amp up the rhetoric, and that's not going to help. But as of this point, answer to your question, I think things will be certainly manageable in the National Capital Region.
All right. Talking with Congressman Anthony Brown. For more information, go to anthonybrown.house.gov at Rep. Anthony Brown. Congressman, appreciate your time. We'll talk soon.
Charles, thank you.
All right. Take care. Okay. Let's take a break. And when we come back, we're scheduled to talk with Anoa Shanga. Anoa Shanga, also now writing a contributor for Essence Magazine, longtime electoral justice, election law reporter, has been looking very closely at and reporting on voter suppression in states like Georgia. She is down in Georgia in the Atlanta metro area, so we are scheduled to speak with her, get her sense of how things transpired over the day yesterday. Anoa Shanga coming back here on Reality Check. Also, a little bit later on, have some open phone lines. I think we have Professor Kalala Brown-Dean joining us too a little bit in the 11 o'clock hour. You have an opportunity to talk with her. Justin Wallen, one of our strategists, also expected to talk with us. He's on the West Coast, and then Jenny Cohn a little bit later on in the 12 o'clock hour. These are who we are scheduled to speak with. I know she's got some concerns as far as election security and glitches with voting machines, or reports of glitches with voting machines. So we've got a full court press here. Just looking at the election the day after, and still going to be watching what's happening very closely in a number of states, including Pennsylvania, as vote counts are underway. People taking a little bit of a rest last night. People didn't want to be, in the early morning hours, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, counting votes. People, just getting a little rest, getting back at it, counting ballots in places like Pennsylvania and elsewhere. So we're going to keep a close eye and see if there are any results for any states that are called during the next 3 hours of this broadcast. Let me take a break, and then when we come back, hopefully we'll have Anoa with us here on Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Jefferson Health offers no-cost COVID-19 testing at St. Raymond of Pinafort Church. Testing is on Thursdays and Saturdays. For testing hours and more information, visit jeffersonhealth.org/community testing.
As a business owner, hiring and developing people from the community that your company serves is one of the best ways to show commitment to that community. Let WURD Radio help with Livelihood, our new initiative that connects Philadelphians with companies like yours. We'll feature your business, open employment opportunities, and resources to connect your company with talent and ensure that you reach your target demographic. To learn more about how Livelihood can help you build your team, visit wordworks.com. That's WURD works.com. Livelihood is supported by the Nightland Fest's Local News Transformation Fund, Borealis Philanthropies Racial Equity and Journalism Fund, and the Solutions Journalism Network. WURD Radio presents the following wellness tip to support our listeners with mindfulness and motivation as we continue to navigate the pandemic together.
Hi, this is Helana, your resident health and wellness coach, with tips to help you stay well. Many of us have heard this term before, but may not know what it really means. Compassionate living brings mindfulness and peace to the center of your daily life. Compassionate living can look like this. Number 1, be gentle with yourself and those around you. Number 2, choose to speak kindly to others, even when you're upset. Number 3, become a good listener and practice empathy at home and at work. We sometimes think in order to live with compassion, we have to become someone else. Not so. In fact, allowing peacefulness to be at the center of our daily interactions is something we can practice every day. Go ahead and try it today. Stay well with WURD. Happy living.
Stay well with WURD. Connect with us at wordradio.com. Reality Check
with Charles Ellison
right now on WURD Radio
and WURDradio.com.
All right, welcome back. We're here on our Wednesday midweek, midday edition. It's our post-election day edition of Reality Check. Like we said, it was going to be election week, not election day. So we're still back at it. We're extremely busy here. A lot to go over, a lot to unpack, a lot to navigate you all through and try to help folks kind of cope with this as best they can. So, still votes are being counted. States have not been called. Once again, we are following Associated Press. Associated Press, at least for Reality Check, WURD is the gold standard when it comes to these calls. I'm not waiting on any other news organizations but AP. If AP doesn't call it, consider that it has not been called yet. And and they've been in the business for 170 years, and I know how they work. I know what the methodology is. That's what we're going with. So if you're like seeing a state getting called right now, and you're like, Charles, you didn't call the state. If I didn't see it on AP, which I'm looking at very closely, it has not been called. So just want to let people know that last night during our special election edition. Joining us now by Skype, actually, you can see her on WURD TV, is Anoa Shanga. Anoa Shanga, a longtime journalist. She's been covering the election law landscape, looking closely at voter suppression. She's now contributing at Essence Magazine, I'm saying, as of late. And Anoa, because you're not in prison anymore, where did you migrate over to, Anoa? How are you doing? Good morning.
Good morning, Charles. Thank you so much for having me. I am just in this really interesting space right now, trying to contribute good communication, good information to several different outlets. I've had a bunch of pieces in Essence, Rewired, Truth Out most recently, and just keeping things moving and flowing. I also contributed to the Scatterlight Magazine video series As the South Votes, which looks at voter suppression, voting rights in the South. So there's just a lot on the plate and a lot of coverage to be done.
Okay, excellent. Let's just make sure we get I think we got you sounding okay. There was a little bit of an echo when we were hearing you just now, but we'll keep kind of muscling through it. So it's good to be with you, Anoa. Hey, Anoa, just kind of give your first impressions of how things went yesterday, last night. We still got these early votes to count. People were acting as if, okay, we were going to get the results last night. Even like I was seeing early on in the evening, like exit polling data from CNN. I'm like, well, how can you do an exit poll off of just voters today when you just had over 100 million people vote? But your first impressions and thoughts on where we are right now. What happened?
I think that's a really great point about exit voting and just like the way CNN and the major outlets are actually contributing to some of the confusion and misinformation in this moment. I mean, you mentioned AP in your opening. Yeah. The Associated Press and Trusted News Network and so many others have been making the very clear point that there needs to be restraints in the reporting about any type of results. And we know that the number of voters that showed up either during the early election period or through voting by mail has been huge numbers compared to historical turnout in previous cycles. And so only relying on what people were saying who showed up on actual election day, also recognizing that so many of our folks were fearful because of misinformation that was going out about possible violence and other things. So it tells a very incomplete picture of what's going on right now.
Yeah. How bad was it, particularly as you were watching early voting and watching what was happening yesterday in Georgia? How bad was that voter suppression? We've been talking about that for months, you and I, for a long while. I mean, that was the initial reason why we called on you and always love having you on the show. How bad did it look? And I mean, what does Georgia need to do and states like it moving forward?
I mean, Georgia needs a new Secretary of State. That's just the bottom line. That's the leadership at the top. You look at the difference even when you have a Republican Secretary of State like a Kim Wyman in Washington versus a Secretary of State like what we have here in Georgia. So that's just the bottom line. I mean, we saw the Secretary of State actually sent out an investigator from his office who appeared armed by some reports we've heard from poll watchers to intimidate folks who were doing line warming. So that's the, folks you may see giving out prepackaged snacks or water, just providing comfort for people who are standing and waiting at the polls, because historically we have seen very long lines and long wait times on election day in Georgia, Texas, and other places.
Yeah.
And, relying on a real misinterpretation of law around electioneering when in fact these are nonpartisan folks who are just reaching out to make sure all voters, no matter who they're voting for, and folks in the general community have support. And we've seen Peace by the Polls and other efforts doing the same thing. I mean, when we're also talking about voter suppression, we're talking about a Secretary of State that has focused more on criminalizing and demonizing the expansion of voting opportunity instead of making sure that the system itself is sound and secure and works. And when I say secure, I mean people are requesting ballots, ballot applications are being processed, and then ballots are being received. We've also seen, interference. I'm not sure what the exact interference in terms of the postal delays may have had for Georgia voters. But we saw a lot of misinformation around whether or not those people who had not received their absentee ballots could actually cast their vote on election day. People were turned away, not offered provisional ballots, not offered the opportunity to actually cancel or spoil their ballot and vote. So we saw a lot of things like that here as well. And we saw in at least one county where machines did not work at all, countywide. So there is so much support that is needed, and that comes from the top down. We just saw in recent Supreme Court decision-making that allegedly it is the state legislature, it's the state powers that control elections. But here in Georgia, we have a Secretary of State that tries to place the blame on counties that are overburdened, undersupported, and we're seeing the impact overall of the lack of funding that folks were lobbying for in the HEROES Act in particular earlier on in the year. So, I mean, we're seeing a lot of different things, but we are seeing from the vote totals that are still coming in that the gap in the vote share from 2016 to now has been cut in at least half, if not more. It's still not finalized data, but we're seeing that increase in Democratic vote share in the presidential. That is the work of organizing so many people on the ground.
It's just basically
voter suppression.
Yeah, like that turnout, that massive turnout operation. Stacey Abrams, former House leader in the Georgia State House, being a big reason for that. Obviously, during her unsuccessful gubernatorial attempt that was stopped by voter suppression. So she obviously, she had an axe to grind, a good one, because she was, really upset about how that played out. And so I probably would have did the same thing if I was in her shoes. Okay, well, let's organize, let's overwhelm this. So it seems like that worked, but like the lengths you had to go to make that work, to put people through that. People didn't have to go through that. So that's not necessarily something to be elated about. It's definitely something that, I guess it's a model for good voter mobilization, get out the vote, anti-voter suppression efforts. But just imagine if we didn't have to deal with that, right? So, but it seems like that worked. I mean, that's going to kind of have to be the model moving forward, while on a parallel track, I guess, right, like, replacing the Secretary of State, doing, making other fixes as well. What were you hearing? And I know you looked at Georgia, but I mean, just similar situation in all those other states, because you look at the South, especially, you look at some of those other states, like you were looking at, neighboring states like Florida, Alabama, Louisiana, Texas, and elsewhere. Same thing, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, like, we look at the overwhelming turnout in Texas, and just, Texas. I mean, even in Ohio, people have been doing the same organizing for close to a decade, if not more, in terms of trying to build the capacity and prove the concept that if you build a base of support, if you build a coalition of people who are engaged systemically, like longer term, and not just that short term, 6 week, 3 week out turnout game that unfortunately a lot of traditional campaigns tend to do, you can see incremental, actual changes in the way voters are turning out, showing up, and being engaged. So the work of Stacey Abrams, like, even though Fair Fight was formed right after the governor's race, back in 2013, Stacey Abrams and St. Uplat founded the New Georgia Project, which has been mobilizing and engaging, registering Black, brown, young voters across the state since 2014. So, like, we've seen similar efforts in Texas with Move Texas and TOP and amazing organizations. I mean, Arizona, while Southwest is not the South, the work in Arizona is simply phenomenal. You look at what happens when people organize and invest in, organizers and organizations of color and allow them to run their program. I mean, I think so much of what we're seeing right now, same in Ohio, like when the powers that be can get out of their way, can get out of their whiteness, right? And trust in the rest of us to do this work. Because what we're seeing is a repudiation of, all the appealing to the sensibilities of Republicans and moderates, right? Like, there is still nearly half of those who are voting in the country who would prefer to vote for the current person in office than to vote for what's in the best interest of all the rest of us. And we need to shift the way we're engaged. This doesn't mean that folks shouldn't go collect their cousins and try to, talk to the white voters in the communities, but at the same time, like, that type of outreach can no longer exist at our expense. And far too often, our communities are thrown under the bus in the attempt to maybe win over someone who might have supported a John Kasich, when those people, if they are going to not vote for Trump, they don't need any extra incentive to do so. So we are seeing amazing mobilization. Even in your home state of Pennsylvania, we've seen work by organizations in Allentown and other places to actually turn out Black and Latino voters and really put in that work, where unfortunately traditional Dem organizers or traditional Dem party politics is still not quite there on the investment, but they are sinking a lot of money and losing Senate races in Kentucky, right? So, there is so much that needs to be challenged. Mike Epstein, like when we talk about Mississippi, I just saw from Mississippi Free Press that Mississippians overturned a law that if you win statewide, you have to, basically Mississippi has its own function of functional electoral college buildings in Mississippi, or it did at least, right? And there was an amendment, and that just passed in Mississippi. So what opportunity will we now see in Mississippi in terms of folks, particularly Black folks? Mississippi, I think by percentage of population is the largest Black state or something like that. I forget the exact data, but there's so much potential in Mississippi if folks would just actually invest and support the work. So shout out to Erika Bennett and Mississippi Votes and so many amazing people doing the work. And then we had Tennessee, Kentucky, North Carolina. We just watched police. We just watched police attack voters, like something out of a Eyes on the Prize documentary scene, right?
That's exactly
weekend.
how it looked. Yeah.
It was, and not because, and their justification was, well, they didn't comply with their permits, so what they did was justified. And there are multiple sheriffs, like the sheriff in Alamance County, across the country. There are multiple barriers. Talking with the head of Down Home, North Carolina, one of the organizations that does voter protection and engagement work in North Carolina, Bridget said to me, we talk about the issues we have around voter suppression, but in so many instances, especially when we talk about more rural communities and rural counties, it is these sheriffs, it is some of these gatekeepers like the sheriff of Alamance County that are the greatest barrier to actual change. And being able to remove them, being able to get more people on the county commission, just really thinking more strategically. I think we have to put aside ego and be way more strategic in the way we're moving politically.
Yeah. I did want to get your thoughts too, and you kind of helped with that, Noah. But as we're closing out, I know you were watching those exit polls or seeing the exit polling data, and we did see something of a spike in Black support for Trump compared to 2016. About a 5%. It looks like a 5 percentage point spike among Black men in support for Trump. Even like several percentage points worth of an increase in Black women's support for Trump. So, and I know we're going to be having like a conversation for months about what happened there, like especially after all what's been happening and over unfolding over the past few years, what's happened in this year alone, and the disproportionate impact, the existential impact that's had on Black people. Like, what happened? And how do we have that conversation? You know what I mean? Like, how do we have that conversation in a responsible way?
While Black men may have voted at a slightly higher percentage for Trump than Black women, I appreciate you noting that it was Black people as a whole that had that increase rate, Black men and women. And we saw some of that actually in Andrew Gillum's race down in Florida. We did see, more Black women actually voting against him than Black men in that instance, right? And so, we really need to be looking at, there is a Black conservative space. There has always been a Black conservative space. And not in terms of old school Black Republicans, but Black conservatives, like Armstrong William Black conservatives, right? We know that exists. What I do think part of the problem is we're looking at the overall vote share percentage. I don't think there was enough done to bring in and support the work of bringing in non-voters and infrequent voters that would have helped neutralize more of that vote. I don't know if there's significantly a great share of folks who are just suddenly conservative. I do think that there's a lack of political education and consistent engagement. So, and folks are getting fed bad information about things, right? If both of these two people who are running for president, they're both old, they're both white, If you're not getting good information about why you should vote for either one, hopefully, ideally, people would just not vote. But there are those people who like the fact that it's that rapper effect, right? If they like the fact that Trump is a self-made man or whatever other nonsense that they believe about him.
Yeah.
And it's astonishing, but I don't think we're going to change most of those people's minds. I do think that there are some folks who, you know, I just think that they need to have a little bit more touch in terms of political engagement involvement, and we need to fundamentally change the way we're practicing democracy. Because right now, it's treated as a spectator sport that comes around every 4 years. When you and I both know, Charles, that it's something that directly impacts our lives literally every single day. And we have elections happening every single year round. So this limbo moment we're in right now is flustering for all of us. But at the same time, this is a real opportunity to kind of shift narratives and to lead, especially as we're going into municipal elections in many places coming up in 2021 and statewide races and midterms in 2022. And another shot at several Senate seats. So.
Yeah, well said. Anoa Shanga joining us here, and roving journalist working on these issues on electoral justice, voter mobilization, voter suppression issues and efforts. Go to @theway_with_Anoa for more there. She's highly engaged, got a lot of information there. She's showing up in a number of publications. She'll be here with us, I'm sure, from time to time here on Reality Check. So it's good to see you. Absolutely. So we're going to call on you more, Anoa. Thanks so much. She's down there in ATL, Georgia. Thanks again. Take care. Be safe out there.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care. All right, let's take a break, and when we come back, 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. We're going to have open phone lines as we head into the 11 o'clock hour. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 on Reality Check. Let me take a break, and we'll be right back.
At PICO, we know one thing is certain. Times have changed. From kitchen classrooms to couch conference calls, searching for a new job, or new ways to keep your family connected. These changes have become a part of our reality. That's why our teams are working 24/7 to meet the needs of our communities. So no matter how much things change, you can depend on PICO to be there with the energy and help you need to power through. Learn more at pico.com.
Listen to Laborers Live.
We created the weekend, we created the 40-hour work week. We just want enough to feed our family, be able to send our children to college, and let our next generation do better than we did.
To people that might have forgot how important unionism is in a country like the United States. People now infringing on our 8-hour work day, trying to work people more than 8 hours without overtime, trying to work people without benefits. In the long run, everybody's getting a fat paycheck except the worker. So this is really a wake-up call for America.
The struggle is continuous. Tune in to Laborers Live every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. Sponsored by LESIT, the Laborers Employers Cooperation Education Trust of the Laborers District Council of Philadelphia and vicinity.
Local 332, Sam Staten Jr. Business Manager. Local 57, Esteban Vera Business Manager. Local 135, Dan Woodall Jr. Business Manager. Local 413, James Harper Jr. Business Manager. The Laborers District Council, Ryan Boyer Business Manager, and Tony Staten, Executive Director of LESIT.
Did you know you can catch the flu and COVID-19 at the same time, or even back-to-back? Don't risk catching the flu during the COVID-19 pandemic. The flu shot is a safe and effective way of reducing your chances of catching the flu or spreading it to others. And the flu shot helps protect you and your community from the worst effects of the flu. Don't say, I should have got my flu shot. Call your doctor or visit your pharmacist and get your flu shot today.
Reality Check
with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio
and WURDradio.com.
Yeah, so phone lines are open, 215-634-8065. Toll free, it is 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. It is our post-election day. It's our post-mortem analysis that's now unfolding here on Reality Check. We're still in the throes of the election because this election, particularly the presidential election and the state of the U.S. Senate, that has not been called. So, you know, election coverage, #word on politics, is still happening. It's still pushing forward, and we're just trying to, you know, just sort of dissect exactly what's been going on, what's happening now, what also happened to lead us to this point where we're in a, you know, as Anoa was saying, in limbo. 215-634-8065. I want to get your thoughts, what you're thinking, sort of the anxiety you're going through. Everyone just, you know, try to relax. as much as possible, really, I would suggest, and I don't say this lightly, I don't say this like loosely or flippantly, I would suggest to not spend so much time in front of your TVs, even having cable news on in the background. Is not the healthiest thing. It's not good for your mental health, and if your mental health's not in check or is not being taken care of, then that can lead to physical issues, right? So I'm being real serious. Like at a certain point last night, I just cut off the TV. I'm like, you know what? I can wait till I can wait till tomorrow morning. I just like turned off the TV and went to bed. So did go to bed a little bit later than I would have liked to, and just took a little extra time to sleep just to make sure I was well rested, and started looking at headlines again. Nothing had changed from when I went to bed, but yeah, I'm not going to spend my day watching cable news channels, as they're unpacked, because media, particularly mainstream media, and that's another conversation, has been just amazingly irresponsible during this process. That's another conversation. They've been. I can go so far as to say that mainstream media has been just as bad as Donald Trump in terms of the level of anti-democratic disrespect, especially that's been shown to you as audiences and to voters. It's just highly irresponsible. We're all going through a very unprecedented and very dramatic moment in our lifetimes, particularly with this pandemic. These media organizations know that we're all living through something very unique and different, and something very dramatic and destructive as well. So we were going to have to operate differently and do things differently, and that includes media organizations as well. And so how dare media organizations do projections when we just had 101 million people nationwide vote early before election day. And so how dare you make projections and calls on election night acting as if everything is normal, and when those 100 and when tens of millions of those 101 million ballots have yet to be counted. So I just don't understand the need to call things to jerk people around, or shake them around, and have all this anxiety build up into a frenzy. Just wait. Like, can't we call states at the end of the week, like on Friday, or maybe even a week from Tuesday election day, until everything's counted? Do some analysis, or some smart or stupid takes, or just look at exit polls, and then just try to determine exactly, and then just hold it. Just all the media organizations come together, because they come together on everything else. Like in Washington D.C., they do things like their White House Correspondents' Dinners. They know how to get together for galas and dinners, and to dress up in black ties and to hang out over cocktails in the evening. I know that for a fact. So all those media organizations, because I've been to those events, I mean, they all sit down and they talk to each other, and they coordinate and they plan, like, who's going to cover what. Couldn't you have done it in this instance? I don't get it. I think that would have been the ideal situation, because we're in a different time. Like, nothing's at all normal at this moment. Like stop treating it like it is. And so that would have been the smart, responsible, and frankly professional thing to do. There's no such thing these days as journalistic professionals. There are no journalistic professionals. It was just highly unprofessional to do that. Like I said, I was watching CNN. They're like throwing out exit polls. I'm like, who are you exit polling? Oh, you exit polled? You must not have told us you were exit polling 101 million people? Like, you were able to exit poll over a period of weeks of early voting 70, what amounted to nearly 75% of the whole combined 2016 electorate. And you can now extrapolate exactly what was going through voters' heads by looking at 1 day of voting versus like days and a couple of weeks of voting over a period of time that have been happening early. That so many, I don't get it. I don't. It's highly irresponsible. I hope the journalistic, the journalism itself. We talk about kind of like with the reckoning and the change that the political and policy profession has to go through. Journalism really has to have a conversation with itself. So thank goodness I wasn't a trained journalist growing up. I didn't go to journalism school. I don't know what they're learning in journalism school. I don't. I'm like, I just kind of just fell into this, and it just really just sad, irresponsible, unprofessional work. That's just making the situation a lot worse than it needs to be. Sorry, I'm going off on a rant here. Derek out of Colorado is calling in for a reality check. Derek?
Yeah, I'm glad you're taking my call.
All right.
I didn't think you were going to go off. Anyway, I can tell you the black guys I have spoken to who voted for Trump, and I said, how could you vote for him? And they were saying there were 3 things I don't think people are listening to. The big thing for a lot of them was the abortion thing. That's number 1. Number 2 was the...
You said abortion?
Yeah, abortion thing was for a lot of them. And the number 2 was the immigration thing. And I keep on speaking to so many black guys, and I don't think people are hearing them. Well, the immigration thing is important because a lot of these guys are telling me I can't get a job, or the guy tells me, especially I've spoken to people in California, said, and I don't know if they're lying or telling you. I heard that when I was out there. You got to speak Spanish to get a job, or something like that. And the other one was the criminal justice thing, the 1994 crime bill, and that was those are the big 3 things. And also, I was reading something else, too. Can you explain? They were talking about some bellwether states, and I was looking at, they said that you always, if you win Ohio, you win the presidency. Then I was looking at some other things on bellwether, and if you win Missouri, I think they've only lost, most likely you win the presidency. Can you tend to understand those type of things about bellwether states, or is that going to be... is that something we need to look at, or nothing to worry about? The bellwether.
You mean those battleground states?
No, they call them bellwether states. They said Missouri was one because I've only had 1 or 2 since 1904. If you won Missouri, most likely you became president. If you won Ohio, most likely you became president. If you won, he mentioned I think Pennsylvania is a bellwether state too. But you always hear about you got to win Ohio, you got to win Ohio, you got to win this state and everything. Is that going to be going out the door?
I think so. I mean, and that's been the case for kind of the past couple of presidential election cycles. Like Ohio used to be that bellwether state, like probably up until Obama, right? And so because the demographics, 2 things have been happening, right? One is that the share of the electorate, of the overall American electorate that's white, has been shrinking. So it went from, I think the electorate, the white electorate went from 71% in 2016 to now 65%. So, white population in general, white population size has been shrinking, and that in turn shrinks the size of the white electorate. So that's one. And then 2, the demographics in these states have been dramatically changing. So in a number of ways where, maybe at one point Ohio was a bellwether, but then the demographics, the country is becoming so diverse, and there's just a lot of folks are moving into different states, and you have states like southern states that were at one time or another that were much more white than they were diverse, and or were more kind of just like sort of solid white black, but now you have like other demographic groups, racial demographic groups moving into those states, and so mixing things up and kind of offsetting the whole notion of a bellwether state. So that's, when you see those kinds of demographic changes and shifts and people moving around to different states taking place, a little bit more sort of residential mobility out there, depending on the demographic group in the region, et cetera, that changes things. That changes the composition and the role of that state. Real quick, Derek, go ahead and finish up.
They talked about Missouri, and they talked about, real quick, they talked about Missouri. They said they've only, if you win Missouri, and maybe you have to look up that or Google or something like that. I think they vote for every presidential. If you won Missouri, you most likely became president. I think they only lost about between 1904 to 2008 or 2010 or 12 or whatever they call it.
I'm not. The past couple of election cycles, I have not been like a major fan of the whole notion of a ballot because I think once again these states are the demographic compositions are changing, and it just all depends. I mean, it's not as clear cut as it used to be, right? I mean, the whole bellwether paradigm. So I don't know, but you're right. I mean, people are still looking at that, and they look at that trend, and so but anything can change. Yeah, but no, thanks, Derek. Thanks for raising that. I'm gonna have to let you go because I got to go to break here. But thank you. Thanks for calling out of Colorado too. Colorado, you were John Hickenlooper, the former governor of Colorado, running as the Democrat for Senate. He was able to knock off Cory Gardner, who was the Republican incumbent. So Democrats do have Colorado in their column now. 2 Democratic U.S. senators in the state of Colorado, and Colorado maintaining blue. So yeah, definitely. Thanks, Derek, for calling from there. Let me take a break, and when we come back on the other side, phone lines are open at 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's take a break, and we'll be right back.
Seniors, does your doctor regularly reach out to check on you? Can you walk into your doctor's office and see them if you need to? Do you have your doctor's cell phone number, and can you call them anytime, day or night? At Dedicated Senior Medical Center, their only specialty is caring for seniors. Dedicated makes it easy to get the primary care you deserve. Doctors spend more time with patients than the doctors you may be used to. They offer telehealth visits, help you get your medications, and even make sure you get to your appointments. If your doctor isn't treating you like family, it's time to say yes to Dedicated Senior Medical Center. Call Dedicated Senior Medical Center today to schedule a visit and find out what you're missing. Call 267-443-1900. That's 267-443-1900. Appointments are available now.
Monday through Thursday, keep it locked to WURD Radio. At 6 a.m., start your day with the Power Hour, hosted by Bishop Dwayne Royster and Reverend Mark Kelly Tyler. At 7, it's Wake Up with WURD with Solomon Jones. At 10 a.m., it's Reality Check with Charles Ellison. Then at 1 p.m., it's The Source, hosted by Andrea Lawful Sanders on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, and the Black Women's Leadership Council on Wednesdays. At 4 p.m., it's Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Then at 7, it's Save Space with Sincerely Sarita. At 9 p.m., round up your day with Keeping It Real with the Reverend Al Sharpton.
Keep your dial locked
to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Streaming live on WURDradio.com and the WURD Radio app.
Or watch live on WURD TV via Facebook and YouTube. WURD Radio. Independent Black Media. This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia.
Independent Black Media. Reality Check
with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio
and WURDradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check. Phone lines are open at 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. Let's just view this as extended coverage from yesterday, extended hashtag Word on Politics coverage here on the home of Black Talk Media, WURD. Hashtag Word on Politics for more. Continue to go for updates. You can go on social media, especially Twitter, where I am, and look to see if we can give you some data points there. Hashtag Word on Politics. Also update some things on the B Note, our companion magazine for this program, thebenote.com. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let me go to Paysock out of West Philly, calling for a Reality Check. Paysock.
Shalom, shalom, my brother Solomon. You've been having some deep topics. This morning is deep. And they talking about, you ask the brother, are you a slave? You ask him a question. He can't even answer it. He can't even answer it. The only thing you have to say is, yes, I am a slave. By the way,
Who's that? No, I was just a little confused. Who was that answering?
The brother who you had on before, that he couldn't even answer the question.
Oh no, who did I have on before just now? I don't. Oh, you're talking about
earlier.
Oh, out of Colorado. Oh, before the segment.
Yeah.
Okay. No, he was just kind of posing that rhetorically. It's not that he was like directly asking me like, am I a, he was just saying kind of like that sentiment, you know, just trying to unpack exactly kind of where the head of black male voters was. I didn't take that as he was asking me directly. No, I don't consider myself that, but you know, I think it was just a rhetorical question. We were just kind of just trying to analyze, well, what's going on with black male voters, or what was going on with some black male voters, not the majority, but some, last night and in the weeks leading up to the election. All right. Okay. Thanks, Paysock. So let me go to Bobby out of Southwest, who's calling for a reality check. Bobby.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning. What's up?
Listen, I want to say this. Presently, I don't care how black men are voting. What I am happy about is that they're participating in the system. Then they're exercising their right to vote. Now, how they think and things of that nature is another page. I voted the way I voted as a woman. I think that more people who vote, specifically our brothers and our sons, is good. Now, it can always, in the future, first of all, they can experience whatever happens in the finals of this election. But then they can, at least we know brothers are looking at the political avenues of America. That's my concern. You know, they're being counted.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the way I feel.
I mean, I appreciate that that view, Ms. Bobby. I do. I appreciate it. I still have issues with it, and here's why. I think it's a very interesting aspect of this conversation. I think that you bring up. I think that is one way to look at it. That is one thing to argue. Like, you know, at the end of the day, as long as folks are politically participating, but is this the kind of election? Was this the kind of moment to experiment with, you know, to experiment with that level of political participation? And how I say this, it's something I still need to kind of unpack. Yeah, I'm always encouraged when, like, especially brothers are engaged in the political process, but engage in the political process still in a smart way and smartly, because it's not going to make much difference how politically engaged you are if you're voting against your interests, or you're voting for the type of person or for the type of political organization that is actively, as we speak, unraveling and destroying your voting rights, is in the process. I mean, and we see that happening, is right now in the process as we speak. We just spoke with an expert about that, is in the process of obliterating and destroying your ability to civically engage, to make decisions on, you know, important policy matters. So, okay, fine, you know, you got the opportunity to participate in this election, and, you know, and you voted for Donald Trump, you know, some folks out there. But it's like, if he gets reelected, he gets a second term, then that's it. Like, then we've just accelerated. Like, you might as well have just like hammered the nail in your own civic coffin, because then the whole process of destroying black voting rights, destroying black people's ability to have some agency over our own policy, fate, and future, all that destructive process is going to accelerate. It's not going to get any better. It's not going to go in. It's not going to that destructive process is not going to reverse itself. It's going to accelerate. So on one hand, okay, it's great to see like brothers politically engaged, but it's not so great when they're voting like literally against their own existential interests. You know, when they're voting against the safety and the protection of their own community. then I mean they might as well just be like, you know, white guys doing that. You know, like just, you know, not so well-meaning white male voters doing the exact same thing. So, you know, I'm not thrilled about that. I'm just not, because you know, this was not the election for people to toy around with, or to experiment with, or to feel that they could kind of you know, they could get away with it. Let me I'm sorry, Ms. Bobby, but no, thanks for that view. I understand where you're coming from, but I just, that's kind of where I stand on that. Let me go to Jim out of Clearwater, Florida, who's calling in for a reality check. Jim.
Oh, good morning, Mr. Ellison. How are you,
Hey,
sir?
good morning. How are you doing? All right.
Fine. Well, I'm one of those black men you're talking about. But, you know, I did vote for Biden. But nonetheless, when you talk about, I mean, very important.
Well, I'm not talking about you. I think that was good. I think that you know, like I said, you know, so, you know, voting for Biden, that to me, I mean, it's an existential moment. So you voted in your best interest, not just in your best interest, but, you know, your community's best interest, because you saw the moment and you stepped up to it. So, yeah, so, I mean, yeah, thank you for that.
Okay, but, you know, you said voted my best interest. I voted for order, and that was the main reason for my order, my vote. You know, when you talk about main issues, and then I go back a long ways, you know, from back to the 70s and up until today. And, you know, you look at the immigration. The immigration is an important thing that, to me, Democrats have really failed on. They have not created a clear view. They have not created an area where is that, hey, you know, that when it comes down to immigrants versus the average American citizen, that they call more, that they're more vocal towards immigration. When I say immigration, let's get it right, illegal immigration rights, rather than the average American citizen right. And they speak loudly on that, as if to convince the constituency out there, which is now 17% of the population. That's who they're speaking to, that they're no longer really speaking to the average American or black American citizen. And you have to bear that in mind. You know, the first time I would have.
I'll say this. I don't think that that's the case. I don't think that. I think that they could. Yeah, could they articulate that message better? I completely agree with you, Jim. And could there be more balance to that conversation? Because at the end of the day, I mean, you're going to have people going in and out of the country, crossing over borders, or needing to, or looking for some economic mobility elsewhere, and that has to be managed, particularly in this period of climate crisis. You know, like when you look at, say, migrants that are coming from Central South America, the more the more the world, and especially this country, refuses to manage climate change, climate crisis. I'm telling you, you know, we're going to have more people trying to want to cross borders and get into other countries because they're trying to get from places that are overheating, where there's going to be high food insecurity, high instability, and lack of water. And they're going to try to get to places like here in the United States. That has to be managed. So I agree with you that in the sense that, yeah, Democrats are going to have to learn how to message and articulate and balance that better so that black voters or black folks don't feel alienated.
Yeah, and you talked about climate. Let's talk about, prior to us really talking about climate change, a reference to the ability for them to cross borders and be here illegally, and yet be fighting for their rights visually and vocally, you know? And when we talk about jobs, I remember we talked about this a while ago, is that we're talking about lack of impact of immigration on jobs. Well, you know, immigration breeds children, and now this is from the 80s until now. Now their children are citizens, you know, and their children don't want to do the same job that their parents are doing. So thus, we're creating another, an employment block that overshadows the African American. You know,
but think about this though, Jim. You know, don't black people, after being here for so long, don't they want to transition out of like those manual labor, menial jobs that like migrants are going to take? So I mean, you're just saying black people should be out on farms, you know, picking fruit and vegetables. I mean, because those are the jobs that, like, in cleaning jobs and things of that sort. Those are the type. I mean, we should be. But no, Jim. Wait a second. Wait a second. Think about this. Let me speak. Let me speak, and I'll let you respond. But think about it. Like, we need to be, as a black community, focused on like how do we transition into high level 21st century jobs, advanced jobs, how do we close these education achievement gaps? How do we get literacy rates higher? How do we get math and science proficiency rates higher? I wouldn't want to. I don't think I would want to be having us languishing in job spaces where where it's manual labor, menial tasks, where we're doing the exact same thing we were doing during the days of Jim Crow. I mean, because that's essentially what undocumented migrants or even new migrants, those are the kinds of jobs that they're starting at, that they're transitioning to. So that's what we're saying. We're salty about having opportunities and crumb jobs. Is that what you're saying?
So you jumped right over it too, didn't you? You jumped right over what I said from 1980.
I'm not jumping right over it. I'm just saying what we need to focus on. And the data doesn't shake that out.
Yes,
that immigrants on a large level are taking jobs from.
It does support it.
It does not. I've seen that. I've seen those studies.
It supported it from 1994 up until today when they were talking about it in California about the displacement of African American jobs. That wasn't even in the hospitals there. Being displaced by immigrants. I mean, that goes all the way up to date. Also 2009. I mean, there's so much information out there in reference to the displacement of African American employment in reference to immigration. That's, overwhelming. Mm-hmm. I mean, all you have to do, and I've looked up this stuff because, again, I come from an era from then.
What do you mean? You looked up talking points? Because even there have been reports and studies on this by both the federal government and think tanks. Since the Bush administration was like, hey, this whole notion that immigrants are wholesale taking jobs from black people, it's not shaking out. There's always going to be competition. But let me say this: there's always going to be competition between different demographic groups. That's the way economies work. So, it's are you going to whine about other people taking other demographic groups, taking one group's set of jobs, or are you going to be more collectively competitive economically? That's just the general thing in a capitalist economy. But on a large scale, generally speaking, it's not the trend that is being painted as. That's just what the data says. That's what was shaken out. So on a micro level, there's going to be instances here and here.
I put too many stuff on my computer for you to say it's not there. It's too much. And again, we were talking about agriculture. You were talking about low-paying jobs. No, I said their children. And their children do not want to do the same job that their parents do, and their parents don't want them to do the same jobs that they're doing. So it's upward mobility. Each generation has upward mobility.
So here's what I say.
It's there.
I said, but Jim, like I said before. Okay, so and that's going to create competition amongst groups. It's just is what it is. And so in that sense, and I see what you're saying. I agree. I partly agree. Well, then we just gonna have to step up. It's just no other way to kind of manage that. But that doesn't mean to kind of take that as the issue to support these direct kind of existential terroristic threats on our population, which is what that translates into when you have a vote when you allow Donald Trump a second term. But I think it's an interesting conversation. I gotta let you go, Jim, because I don't want to take up too much time because I gotta bring someone else on. I appreciate you raising it though. I love this engagement. I think we do need to talk about it more and unpack it, and I will. I promise you I will. But thanks for that. Let me go to Steve out of Hainesport. I'm sorry, I don't mean to take up too much time, Steve. How are you doing?
Okay, sir, and thanks for taking my call. Last time I called you was back in February on the eve of COVID. And let me explain to you what I said to you. I said, you probably remember it. I said, no Republican has ever been defeated with a strong economy. Remember that debate we had?
You said, what was that now? You said?
No Republican president has ever been defeated with a strong economy. And you counted back your last sentence to me, if you can pull it up. You said, what about COVID? And I thought about it months later. I was like, COVID, where did the virus come in? And it just about derailed the presidency for Trump. But let me say this real quick. And I'm not going to hold your time because I know you're busy with all these people on the phone here.
I said no Republican president. I don't recall the conversation, but I said no Republican president.
And you counted back with COVID. I remember your last sentence to me was COVID. You said, but what about COVID? That's the way you said it.
Code red or COVID?
No, COVID, the virus.
Oh, the virus? Right. It's an unprecedented time. Right. COVID, the pandemic, it factored in. That's right. And the economy and COVID are intertwined. Like you can't have, you can't get rid of, you can't get the economy back to optimal level if you got the pandemic raging. If you're not managing the pandemic, that's just full stop on that. But apparently people weren't voting. I mean, people were voting more on cultural war stuff than they were on, you know, the fact that we've got this pandemic in front of us. And that's something we just don't have, but why people voting like that, we don't have any control over that. But go ahead.
All right, so here's my thing, and this is really weird.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he did win Ohio.
Yeah.
Usually if you win Ohio, you win the presidency. Is that correct?
Yeah, Ohio has been a bellwether.
They said if you win Ohio, you normally win the presidency. But here's what I'm trying to bring up.
It's lost its bellwether touch in recent cycles. But no, I understand. Yeah, I mean him winning Ohio that's a good thing for him. But we got to wait till these other states are called. But yeah, I got you.
Every state that they call the swing state, I had pulled up all these surveys, and let me give the states. It was Michigan, Wisconsin, PA, North Carolina, Georgia, Texas, and Florida. And I said, that doesn't sound right. You know, by this time we should have known who won the presidency.
But Steve, let me stop you there. This is an unusual election. We just had 101 million people vote and send in tens of millions of ballots early. This is the first time this has ever happened in U.S. history. This is not the kind of election where you can call it on the night of the election. You can't. People should have got that out their minds. If Donald Trump wins after all the ballots are counted, then okay, or he gets reelected, fine. And he's going to get reelected, and then we're going to have to pivot. We're going to have to pivot in really dramatic ways. But we have got to get away from this mindset that the election should have been called last night. No, it should not have. It should not have, because it wasn't operating that way. It wasn't operating that way. I don't understand why everybody feels like it should have been called. It's like, no, it's a different kind of election. We're in the middle of a genocidal pandemic, Steve. Like, it's not normal.
Yeah, I understand that. But California was already called. How could California be called?
That's California, but then that's California. Okay, so that was called, so they had this stuff together, and it was heavily Democratic. That's just how California swings. Right. It's been swinging like that for a long time. And so, Biden got his 55 electoral college votes. Some states we're not as, we're not as ready for that, or we're not as, we're overwhelmed with the mail-in ballots. Remember, California was one of those states that's been doing mail-in ballots for quite some time now, along with other states like Colorado, Washington, Oregon. Out west, they've been putting that mail ballot process together for more than several years now, for close to a decade. So they've already found their rhythm. But states out on the east and in the south, they've been refusing to do that up until now. This is the first time that the majority of states have finally done this.
Can I say this? I'm going to leave on this here.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm going to call you back tomorrow. I think this thing's going to be settled by tomorrow. Mm-hmm. I believe here's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I saw Wisconsin. They said it was 99% in. Now, did they close Wisconsin? I'm in the car right now. I didn't find out if they did. How can you have 99% of the vote in? Trump's trailing by 8,000 votes. That should have been called by now. Either Biden won it or he didn't.
Hey, Steve, here's my take on that. Be patient. And, if, like I said, if Associated Press, I don't care about these cable channels who've been operating really irresponsibly. And I'm not just saying that because, because of what happened last night, but I've been saying that for months now. If Associated Press does not call that, because they go with facts. I don't care about projections. I don't care about what this might turn out to be. It's like, okay, what exactly, has it happened? And the Associated Press has not called it yet. So at this point, to me, until AP calls it, it's not called. It's no one's state at this moment. And we don't have anything. AP hasn't called it.
Tomorrow, though, when this thing, hopefully it'll be over by tomorrow.
Yeah. I hope so too. I really want it to be over as well. I'm just like everyone else, but I appreciate you, Steve. Yeah, call tomorrow.
Thanks.
And let's see where things are. No, I look forward to that. All right, let's take a break. Yeah, just everyone has to be patient. It should have been called. Why isn't it called yet? Just wait for it to be called, and then if it you know, whatever way it goes, then we just have to deal with it. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. We're going to keep the phone lines open as we bring on Professor Kalila Brown, Dean at Quinnipiac University. Coming up next here on Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, wordradio.com, Word TV, Word app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Our friends at Amoroso's Baking Company are hiring right now. Amoroso's has been baking the delicious bread in our community for over 100 years, and they want you to join their team today. The old and the young love Amoroso's, and they are hiring right now. Check it out. They offer fair pay and provide health, dental, and prescription plans after 90 days employment. Call 856-754-0355 or visit amorososbaking.com for details.
He's back.
This is Reverend Al Sharpton, keeping it real.
With the Reverend Al Sharpton.
In times like these, we have to stay connected.
At a brand new time.
Monday through Thursday, 9 p.m. till midnight.
I'm excited that Keeping It Real returns to WURD.
Keeping it real.
With the Reverend Al Sharpton.
Monday through Thursday, 9 p.m. till midnight.
This program is pre-recorded.
No phone calls, please.
Keep it locked to WURD 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com.
The Word Radio newsletter, keeping you informed, engaged, and connected.
Sign up by visiting wordradio.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and type your email address under Connect with Us. You'll receive the latest information on Word Radio, messages from our president and CEO, Sarah Lomax Reese, exclusive articles and multimedia content, and resources.
Stay informed
with the Word Radio newsletter.
Reality Check
with Charles Ellison right now on Word Radio
and wordradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, wordradio.com, Word TV, Word app. We're still continuing with our hashtag Word on Politics special election coverage. Did a bit of that last night. Well, all throughout the day, yesterday, last night. Just want to continue because things are still unresolved as far as presidential election and also what's going to happen in the Senate as well. So, you know, we're just trying to make sense of it, trying to unpack it, analyze it. We brought on Professor Kalila Brown, Dean, author of Identity Politics in America, also a political science professor at Quinnipiac University. Go to quinnipiac.edu for more information. KBDPhD.com to check her out, check out her book, and get a copy of it as well. So, you know, because it kind of help you make sense of how we arrived at this point. She joins us by Skype. You can see her on Word TV. And good to have you back. This has been a while.
It's great to be back, Charles. Thank you.
All right, good. So what do you think? So you said you were like, compared to a lot of us in this profession, you went to bed a little bit earlier than I kind of envy you when I sit up a little bit later than you did. But what do you make of things right now? How things turned out? Did it surprise you at all, or I don't know, or not?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't, because what we know is that an election does not change people who are beholden to whiteness and beholden to the identity that gives them some form of security in the country. And so that didn't surprise me. What did surprise me, however, is all of the angst that people had. We knew that we would not know on the night of the election who the actual winner was. And so I actually think it's a good thing that people are committed to counting every single vote. If you are willing to risk your life, your health, and your safety to vote, then we have an obligation to make sure that is affirmed and that your ballot is counted.
Yeah. We do. Talk about media organizations a moment. I just think that media, especially mainstream media organizations, have been acting irresponsibly. I mean, why not, like, I thought about that, and I've been thinking about that for months. I had conversations with people inside media organizations. I'm like, why not just wait? I mean, we're in this, like, very unusual, unprecedented genocidal pandemic moment. Everyone's operating differently, managing elections differently, voting differently, campaigning differently. So, okay, why can't the media organizations do the same thing and not use this as or operate this as a normal voting night and just say, hey, you know what? We're just going to wait till all the votes get counted because we just had 101 million ballots early submitted. Let's just wait till next Tuesday and then we'll just all together release it. you know, in the meantime, we'll just keep talking about it, you know, and getting analysis, whatever. I mean, couldn't we have done it that way?
So, Charles, I think it's important to make the distinction that you sort of hinted at, and that is the distinction between mainstream media and organizations like WURD that are very much committed to not just being first, but to being right.
Yeah.
And so in this era where everybody wants to be first, the fact that TMZ can be considered a breaking news source means that people are clamoring. But what it ends up doing is actually discouraging the investment in democracy that those media organizations claim to be invested in. So it has to be, if you want to maintain the integrity of mainstream media, if you want to fight back against the perception of fake news, then what you have to do is say, we are committed to the American people, to getting that information out where it is correct. And then they don't have to walk back things and retract things because people were excited about shiny boards and moving things around, as opposed to thinking how people really feel about what's happening. This is real life. It's not just about elections and ballots. It's about folks' existence.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's about real life. It's about folks' existence. And journalists, they're human beings too. They're living through the life that we're all living through. But they, you know, they tend to act like they're not. And I just think that, you know, like projections, like really, like projections in the 20s, I was really hoping that media organizations or mainstream media organizations would have erred on the side of caution. And I know it's hard, you know, particularly when you're in our profession and in the politics space, you want to make predictions, or you got family and friends that are like, what do you think? What do you think, Kalila? What's it going to be? You know what I mean? You're sitting down there, you know, you're having a Zoom family thing, or, you know, maybe you can socially distance with some family at the dinner table. Kalila, tell us, you know, you know what's going to happen. And so,
no pressure.
No pressure. Right, but this was that moment where really people need to be patient. So we looked at, you know, kind of how things are shaking out. You know, right now we're just waiting on some states to be called. Any sorts of trends, anything that matches historical precedents, right? You know, anything that doesn't, anything unusual that you saw here, you know, in terms of, like, for example, having conversations with listeners who were calling in who were pointing out, like, okay, well, Ohio was called, that was Trump's, so that should determine that, you know, that it's going to be Trump's race, you know, because it's supposed to be, you know, historically some sort of bellwether state. What do you get your thoughts on that, if we saw historical trends broken or if we saw historical trends maintained?
I think we've seen both, and it depends on where you are and what you are looking for. One of the things that we have learned is that it makes no sense to talk about large communities as if they are monolithic. So it sounds silly to talk about the Latino vote or the Latino electorate without understanding that there are distinct differences based on country of origin and also time in the United States. So political scientists have known for decades that Cuban Americans tend to vote more Republican and vote more conservative, and we know why. Much of that has to do with policy toward Cuba. And when you think about Ronald Reagan creating a special pathway for people coming from Cuba that was not extended to people saying, I can't put my pain aside just because it's an election.
Yeah. I mean, we did see really remarkable and very notable spikes in young voter engagement compared to 2016. I think it was like back in 2016, 18 to 24-year-olds were 10%, just 10% of the overall electorate. 18 to 29-year-olds. So at 2016, we didn't have Gen Z yet, but now we have Gen Z. 18 to 29-year-olds were about 17% of the overall electorate. 30 to 44, that's the millennials, because millennials have gotten older. 24% of the electorate. So millennials actually outdistanced or outnumbered the amount of 65 or over voters in that age bracket. So definitely. So we were saying, we did see that, like that, you know, for better or for worse, depending on, you know, kind of how things shake out, because, I mean, that didn't necessarily mean it was all for Democrats, because 62% of 18 to 29-year-olds just voted for Biden compared to 35% for Trump, which I thought was significant, right? So just because they're all kind of registering to vote doesn't mean that that was automatically going to go into Democrats' column. I think Democrats might have overestimated that a little bit.
And I think it's also about community saying, stop taking our votes for granted.
Yeah.
Don't assume that the policies you did before or the strategies you used in the past will be relevant today.
Yeah.
Charles, what I think is so important, and I've been saying this all morning, Black folks cannot afford to start fighting each other. So people have been looking at exit poll data and making these claims about Black men and about the numbers of Black men according to exit poll data that have voted for Trump in 2020, which according to that data is higher than in 2016. We need to be very cautious about that. Lil Wayne doesn't speak for me. 50 Cent's pockets don't look like mine. But I also understand there are people who hold that belief, and we can't allow those individuals to undermine the collective voice of community and the very real policy needs that we are facing.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's break down the Black vote, because there are if I were a Democratic strategist, I'm not, but you know, and I was. I mean, you can be, and maybe you were too, alarmed by some of the Black voter numbers. You did have 5 percentage points more Black men vote for Donald Trump up to last night than did in 2016. Actually, 4 percentage points more Black women voting for Donald Trump than in 2016. So what's going on there, right? And let's expound on that a little bit more. What's going on there? What do we have to do? Because, I mean, we're talking about, look at who they're voting for. Look at what's been going on. Like, it's as if, I don't know, were they in a bubble? Or, I mean, or they just felt like, you know what, I need to make a statement here.
You know, I think there are a lot of folks in the bubble. But if we are honest with ourselves, we can look to our own families and know there are always 1 or 2 people who like to be different and like to be on the fringe because they think they are making a statement. Yeah. And so I'm less concerned with what we need to do for those folks or how much attention we pay to them. I think we have to keep the main thing the main thing. Black women showed up and they showed out in record numbers as voters. We had more Black women on the ballot this year than ever in this country. We are seeing greater diversity of people like Cori Bush in Missouri, never held elected office before. An organizer and an activist will now be in the United States Congress showing a different way of leadership and governance. That's where we have to focus. That's where we have to invest. Figure out how we get more young brothers interested in public service because they are leaders. How do we channel that into a space where they can also affect policy?
You know, I wonder, you know, will we collectively as a Black community, but will we have that opportunity if you get a second Donald Trump term and then suddenly the erosion of voting rights accelerates into the obliteration of voting rights, the obliteration of our ability to access that political policy making space. So I wonder, I mean, will those opportunities be there if you're getting a second Donald Trump term and there's no one taking him on within his own party? Republicans are able to maintain the Senate, and so I mean that doesn't seem the future seems bleak if we have we're going to have a lot of hard work to do, and it's going to be a struggle. So how do we manage that? How do we soldier through it?
Charles, Black folks are in perpetual struggle regardless of who holds the White House. We know that. And regardless of the outcome of this race, we have to remain committed. It's great that we had voting plans. We have to have post-election plans. This is not just about the president. Look what's happening in the United States Supreme Court and what that will mean for generations. Next year, 2021 will be key because all that census data that we fought over will go into redistricting efforts to determine what access we have. There are going to be key races at the state and local level in 2021. We got to get ready.
Yeah. That's the other thing too. I mean, like, I guess it's going to all hinge on, and if Donald Trump is to get that second term, we're going to have to lean more on or rely on engagement on the state and local level as that buffer. That's what I'm saying, right? I mean, just now we're going to have to pay attention to. That's what, you know, people have been asking me. I said, you know what, our safe space or our safe spaces, depending on where we live, are going to be in state and local politics and state and local policy making.
It's really been a switch. Civil rights movement, people look to the federal government for redress, for protection from the harm of their state and local officials. COVID-19 has shown us that state and local officials, from pressure by grassroots people, everyday people at that level, have responded in policy so that we have that representation. That's where we are. Our greatest opportunity to affect change day to day is at the state and local level. Let's hold elected officials accountable, but Charles, let's also hold ourselves accountable.
Yeah, yeah. You know, the other thing here too, which is interesting, Kalila, you know, we talked about like the Latino vote, talked about the black vote. We did touch on the white vote. Let's go back to the white vote, because especially that white women vote did it again. You know, based on the exit polling data, at least. Actually, there was a few percentage points increase in the number of white women who voted for Donald Trump. 55% of white women voted for Donald Trump, according to exit polling data. It was what, 53%? Well, no, it was 52% in 2016. I know people put out 53, but it was 52%. Actually, white male support for Donald Trump dropped compared to 2016. You know, what's that? Because, you know, everybody was saying, you know, okay, well, you know, white women, here's your moment to make amends. It didn't happen in 2020. You know, so what happened there? Because it was like, okay, you know, you all aren't seeing the moment, and people were thinking, okay, Amy Coney Barrett going to the Supreme Court, abortion was supposed to be a big issue. Well, apparently not. If like white women voter support actually increased for Donald Trump.
I think for a lot of white men, there's the concern, the economic anxiety, not that prompted them to vote for Trump, but to vote against him in this election. A lot of folks lost their businesses during this pandemic. A lot of people have felt like their economic interests are not being represented in the White House. And so we see the tide turn a little. But let me be clear. Don't invite me to another women's march. Don't invite me to another women's rally. Don't make a pink knit hat for me unless you are willing to have the conversation with your peers and your family about why this happens. White supremacy is gender neutral, and the embrace of that throughout history is manifest in what we are seeing today. So I don't need an ally. I need an advocate and a co-conspirator. And that's the conversation that I think has to happen now. The same way that we should not paint Black folks with a broad brush, we also cannot do that for women. And if people want to come together, don't come because you think that reading one book on the New York Times bestsellers list makes you woke. Do it because you are willing to commit to it, whether you live in the suburbs or the central city.
Yeah, we've been talking to Kalila Brown-Dean, KBDPhD.com, political science professor at Quinnipiac University, author of Identity, Politics in America, joining us here on Reality Check. So hopefully we'll get back on a little bit more. We used to love having you on, Kalila, regularly, weekly. I know the schedule's been busy and it's about to get a lot busier. You know, you got a lot going on. So, that's right. I please tell us, because I'm forgetting the station call letters, because you have your own weekly program now on Connecticut Public Radio. Where is that? Where can people find you?
I thank you so much for saying that, Charles. So the show is called Disrupted. It airs on Wednesdays and Sundays at 2 p.m., but you can get the podcast version on all of your favorite podcast platforms. So WNPR.org, you can find more information and look for us on all your favorite podcast platforms.
All right, WNPR.org, look for that program, Disrupted. So now Kalila Brown-Dean now hosts, like radio host on Connecticut Public Radio. So good work. Congrats on that to Kalila. So I know you'll be just as busy as we will. So good to have you on. Take care.
Thank you. You too.
Be safe. All right. Let's take a break here on Reality Check. Phone lines remain open. Phone lines are always open. 215-634-8065. Toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065. Toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Phone lines are open. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
Ladies and gentlemen, are you sick of trying to cut and style your own hair and the rest of your family? Well, McLean's Unisex Salon in Mount Airy is open for business. We've been a neighborhood institution for more than 50 years with styles for men, women, and kids. We have new partitions and social distancing measures to keep everyone safe while keeping the welcoming feel you've come to expect from your neighborhood shop. Visit us online at mcleansunisex.com or call now to make an appointment, 215-844-9826.
Keystone First VIP Choice HMO SNP Dual Eligible Special Needs Plan has a 4 out of 5 star rating and is one of the highest rated Medicare plans in the region. Keystone First VIP Choice and you are better together. If you live in Philadelphia, Bucks, Chester, Montgomery, or Delaware County, and you have both Medicare and Medicaid, choose the Medicare plan that is working to help you get better care. Enjoy extra benefits at no cost to you with Keystone First VIP Choice. You get benefits like dental, vision, and transportation to and from your medical appointments. They also cover a fitness membership to a gym of your choice. $150 toward over-the-counter pharmacy items. There's no copay for doctor's visits. They offer a large provider network, a great prescription plan, dental coverage, and even eyeglasses. Plus, you don't have to wait for open enrollment. You can change your coverage every quarter. Keystone First VIP Choice. The name you trust, the service you deserve. Call Keystone First VIP Choice today at 1-877-686-1760 or visit KeystoneFirstVIPChoice.com. This Veterans Day vignette is brought to you by PICO.
African American women in the military during World War II. In recognition of Veterans Day, WURD Radio celebrates the African American women who served in the military during World War II. In May of 1942, the Women's Army Corps accepted its first 39 African American women, often referred to as Black Rosie the Riveters. Black women who served in the military during World War II played a key role in war production. Overcoming Jim Crow, racial and gender discrimination, the African American women who served were revered by their families and were able to contribute to financial growth for their communities in ways that were unprecedented at that time. Their work often lives in the shadows, but many of the Black women who were in the military during World War II are our mothers, grandmothers, aunts who the United States could not have won World War II without. As we continue to fight for racial justice today, WURD Radio celebrates the African American women in the military during World War II and other Black Americans who have served and continue to serve this country.
This Veterans Day vignette was brought to you by PICO, powering communities.
Reality Check
With Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio
and WURDradio.com.
Yeah, welcome back to Reality Check. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Let me go to George out of Center City, get his take here on our day after the election day. So George out of Center City calling for a Reality Check. George, what's good?
It looks like we're picking up where we're supposed to pick up at. Like they were saying last night, is going down the road, it's only one exit for Trump. There's 7 exits for Biden.
Right.
So as they count the early the early election pieces, that means that the numbers are getting better. But you know, Charles, now you hear all the gangster talk. Everybody talking about before they found out what was what. We're going to be at the table and we this, we that. Now all of a sudden we this and we that. They should try to say what's going to be and what they're going to get. Biden already know he got to look out for black people. But the moment they start advertising it and, playing the gangster role, throwing it down somebody's throat, they're going to get nothing. And you know what else we have to be very careful of, and Philadelphia should be, is a prime example of it for the whole nation, is that be careful who you have at the table trying to negotiate for you. Because
I agree with that, everything you just said now.
Most of those coons, not coons, those special Negroes at that table negotiate for themselves.
Yeah.
And I thank Kenny each and every day for showing me that. Not that I didn't know it, but to actually sit there and see it. I used to see it with Rendell because we used to laugh about it. But the fun part is knowing that these people are selling their community down the drain for as much as $250, no more than $2,500. I think you're pretty sad. And they know who they are. And they have no shame, none whatsoever, Charles. And when you're one of the few people in this city that the administration haven't found out. Now, what kind of carrot can we dangle in his face for him to be falling in line like the rest of them? It's about it's a few people that haven't fallen in line, but the majority of them, they eventually find out what is it you want, what is it you need, and they give it to you. So they you know what the most, and I'm gonna go with this, Charles. You know what the most grateful thing to the administration is that you get on the subject and you stay on it for about maybe 10, 15 minutes, and then they know they're off the hook. But if you was to beat them down for the whole 3 hours, trust me, we'll get a whole lot more. Anybody else? They don't worry about it. As soon as they have a problem out of you, they give you a call, and you fall in line. But you and a few other hosts, they just haven't figured it out. You know, you I'm not worried about because, you know, you just in a whole nother league when it comes to black people. You do what it is, what you think needs to be done, and it works. Everybody else, they wave and tell them, you know, your funding will be cut off, or we'll do this and we'll do that. They don't even have to say it. They know it. Now, see, do any of us sit there and complain about the administration?
Yeah, let's see what happens. Hey, George, I'm gonna thank you for that. I agree with a lot you just said there, George. So yeah, let's continue to talk some more about it. Yeah, thanks for those insights, for those observations. And you know, once again, going back to George's statement, people had to be patient. Remember, I said not election night, election week. And I know it's a couple people calling in, you know, to try and say, you know, yeah, you know, why wasn't this call? Why wasn't that call? I was like, I'm not going to predict stuff. I wasn't trying to predict things or get engaged in any kind of irresponsible prognostication. But, you know, it's still, you know, ballots are still being counted. So let's just see how this thing shakes out. Sultan out of North Philly calling in for a reality check.
Yes, sir. How you doing?
Hey, how you doing?
Brother Charles, yes, sir. How you doing, brother?
How you doing, sir? All right, brother. All right. Thank you, sir.
Listen, I want to give a sort of a different perspective, but a consistent one.
Sure.
I think now, first, we should not, and I agree with many of the comments of the young lady you just had on, we should not begin to try to start blaming ourselves or blaming our community or blaming black women, black men, or young people for shortcomings that racism has exposed for long times. Because if you look at these states and you look at these counties and you know the amount of white people in America versus the amount of black people in America, you would have to have a utopia moment for us to just tumble it because of just us as a people. So we know that there's been a lot of collusion with their own people who have not, all those red states where Democrats have not been able to penetrate to get their own white brother in or their own white sister in to get to the polls and be supportive of a Democratic platform. I think we also got to look at the fundamentals now. We need to go back to, in our community, complete voter education, voter registration, and then voter mobilization. And we need to keep the steam that we have now going into the next local election, next governor's election, the next city council and mayor's election, and get ourselves ready in that kind of definition for change, because we'll see what happens with this. And right now I'm yielding to what the count will bring. But I'm not losing any energy because of what has happened. I'm, in fact, more encouraged. I've seen more young people in my neighborhood participate and got in the process. I looked at my grandson who, for the first time in his life, voted. I look at some of the other young people who, for the first time, that they voted. So it is a lot of encouragement, and I think sometimes we don't take we take our shortcomings for our present and not just look at them, but we kind of major in those shortcomings and not look to the victories that we have achieved. Last but not least, we passed the bond question yesterday, I believe, in Pennsylvania. I got an idea, Charles, I want to pass on to you, which is a social impact bond that we can hope to get in front of this city council to get on the ballot for next year. Is a $600 million social impact bond, which could change the level of poverty in our neighborhood, change the conditions in our neighborhood, create employment, economic opportunity, education, public safety, commercial car development, and funding for community-based groups. So I want to send you this proposal and begin to maybe just, since you do a lot of great definition of material.
I like that. Really, I like the sound of that. Yeah.
It's a social impact bond. I mean, historically, all the bonds we've ever passed have dealt with the infrastructure of society, you know, improvement to the roads, the highways, the
or
all
like
of the social,
upgrading municipal buildings, right?
That's right. But we've never dealt with one that deals with the 30-year term of growth for the people that have a consistent platform of growth for the people. So we've been pushing this idea.
Send that,
and
if you have anything that you, C. Ellison at WURDradio.com. I'd like to take a look at that. Anything
at WURDradio.com. Yes, sir. I'm going to get that to you because
please,
that's where we got to go, because we really need to start talking the three bills that was on this, the three ballot questions and the one ballot bond question. And one quick thing. History of bonds. The first bonds that was implemented was part of the industrialization of the South. They went to the Lord of London. They borrowed money based on the number of slaves they owned. That was the collateral, the slaves. They industrialized the whole South. They continued to build this country. So slavery played a key role in the first implementation of bonds. And I'm going to send you a newsletter with all the data on that of all the big insurance companies who made money based on chattel slavery that industrialized America today.
I appreciate Sultan. Thank you for that. No, seriously, send me that. I'm really intrigued by that concept. And I mean, I already do a lot of work with state legislators in particular. Want to do some more with local folks. But, you know, and I'm a senior fellow with the Council of State Government. And I'll be honest with you. It's making me, I've already was doing a lot of extensive work outside of this program with folks around the country in different state capitals, state legislators, because that's where the real kind of work is done. I'm probably going to get more immersed and involved in that, you know, particularly after kind of how this election shakes out, because that's what we're going to have to do. So I'm real curious about that. Please do send that to me. C. Ellison at WURDradio.com. Then we go to Patrick out of Kensington calling in for a reality check. Patrick.
Hey, good morning, Charles. Good
Good
afternoon,
morning.
almost, right?
Yeah, good afternoon almost, right.
Yeah. Well, what a night. I literally, my body woke me up at 2:30 in the morning, and I turned the TV on to watch Trump declaring victory.
Mm-hmm.
And then I immediately grabbed a beer because you know, to me, we're in the. I consider this a very similar to in court, how court works. When somebody else knows that the other side made an appealable decision, yet they don't, you know, they don't really hammer it until after the trial's over because, you know, they don't want to give them a chance to fix it. And I think he's, you know, alluded to the mail-in ballots and how he wasn't going to accept them, but now you see that, you know, his plan has been the same to just allow things to happen that he would feel are appealable. And,
right.
And you'll have to say this, man. How do the polls get it so wrong? Where's the 10 to 12 point, you know, split that we're supposed to have? That Biden was supposed to crush him according to the polls, right?
Well, yeah, you're right, and polls are never right.
So, and I look at it like this, Charles. Check this out. I mean, I was a, you know, pretty good athlete. I was a state champion football teams. You know, you know, my brother was a pro football player. I mean, I've got to see, you know, sports inside and out. And you always see when somebody thinks they're ahead is they start slowing down a little bit. Mm-hmm. And the other side starts speeding up a little bit. I mean, look at Russell Wilson when he's behind. He becomes an absolute miracle maker. And that's what they do when they put these stupid polls out and say Biden's 10 points ahead. They take the Democratic, you know, people who would jump in, you know, in front of a bus before, you know, when they thought things were so even, and they make them slow down. And they take the other side and the pickup trucks and the big, you know, giant rallies that are going on, and they make them speed up. It's basic human nature.
Yeah.
Polls that got it so wrong should be made illegal to ever put a poll out again.
Yeah. Well, you know, polls. I think the polling industry does need to go through an overhaul. I agree with you on that, Patrick. And Patrick, you know, just word of advice. Like, you know, all the votes have not been counted yet. What President Trump did last night was wrong. It was mired and just wrapped in all kinds of lies and misinformation. It was on some levels, you could even make the argument just illegal in terms of election law because all the votes have not been counted. There's lots of votes that are still out there. Remember, we've said that, and if you listen to this program, I've been saying this for months, do not get the whole concept or notion of election day, election night out of your mind. It's election week. And so so just be patient. You know, I would really implore you not to watch a whole lot of cable news. If you can, and so if you can help it, and just, you know, just kind of just sit back, try to relax, and then, you know, just let the votes get counted. It's just this very impatient, instant gratification society that we live in that feels the need to get election results for a country that has a population of 330 million people on the same night. That's our own sort of like self-absorbed way and very impatient way of constantly, you know, and rushing things. Like I don't care about rushing things. I want to make sure that everything's done complete and right. And that's the way that we should work. That's the way we should function. But we're not. So, but everything's not done yet. And so, you know, just try not to get too depressed about it, because I can hear like the depression in your voice. But you are right. Like the polling industries, this was a reckoning for the polling industry, especially if, like, for example, if Trump does end up capturing re-election. And we can't discount how Trump, you know, in terms of what he did last night, that was illegal, as a form of voter suppression. And we can't discount that he and other Republicans have been working on serious voter suppression in a variety of forms, and that played into this. That played into having impact on the margins as well. They've been doing a lot of cheating, and they're continuing to cheat, and now they're going to do it through a variety of legal maneuvers, depending on how tight certain states are as we count the vote. But it all depends on how this shakes out. Patrick, thanks so much. I gotta let you go. Thanks for calling. Thanks for sharing that. Let me take a break. And when we come back on the other side, we're supposed to be talking with Justin Wallen, political strategist and regular contributor on our strategist segments here on WURD. He's going to be calling us from California. Well, I'm sorry, but let's just bring on Justin, because I want to get his take on what's been transpiring, what transpired last night, what's going to be transpiring for the rest of the week. And we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
Millennials are known for many things, but did you know that they are currently on track to have worse mental and physical health than the generations that came before them? The Economy League of Greater Philadelphia is challenging our communities to change that with the Well City Challenge. This community-led competition puts the power in your hands to help shape how we address major health challenges across our region, with an emphasis on inclusion and collaboration. So if you care about the health of your community, bring them innovative ideas they need to turn this challenge into opportunities for the millennial generation. Visit economyleague.org to apply today for a chance to compete for $100,000 in prizes and investments. The Well City Challenge is presented by Independence Blue Cross.
Monday through Thursday, keep it locked to WURD Radio. At 6 a.m., start your day with the Power Hour, hosted by Bishop Dwayne Royster and Reverend Mark Kelly Tyler. At 7, it's Wake Up with WURD with Solomon Jones. At 10 a.m., it's Reality Check with Charles Ellison. Then at 1 p.m., it's The Source, hosted by Andrea Lawful Sanders on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, and the Black Women's Leadership Council on Wednesdays. At 4 p.m., it's Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Then at 7, it's Save Space with Sincerely Sarita. At 9 p.m., round up your day with Keeping It Real with the Reverend Al Sharpton. Keep your dial locked to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Streaming live on WURDradio.com and the WURD Radio app. Or watch live on WURD TV via Facebook and YouTube. WURD Radio. Independent Black Media.
Enterprise Exterminators, located 4943 Wayne Avenue, specializing in lantern flies, termites, bed bugs, fleas, mice, and roaches. Do-it-yourself kits are available. Call now, 215-849-7070.
Too close to call.
And all eyes are on Philly.
Stay tuned to WURD. This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM
and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia.
Streaming live on WURDradio.com, the WURD Radio app, and watch live on WURD TV via Facebook and YouTube. WURD Radio. Independent Black Media.
Reality Check
with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio
and WURDradio.com.
Welcome back. Actually, Justin Wallen will not be joining us, so have to reschedule some things. That's fine. So we'll just open up the phone lines: 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. So if folks were on hold, feel free to call back. I know we might have lost a call or two, might have dropped off once we were announcing that Justin would come on, but we were reopening phone lines at 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900, which is good. It's healthy, so we can get a sense of how people are feeling right now as we're in this moment, as votes are still being counted. The election has not been called. and as of last check, Associated Press showing 238 electoral college votes for Joe Biden versus 213 for Donald Trump. So Joe Biden's still in the lead as far as electoral college votes are concerned. States like Arizona, battleground states like Arizona, Minnesota, and New Hampshire have officially been called by AP for Biden, including Nebraska's 2nd congressional district. States like Maine and Nebraska are split. Their electoral college votes are split according to congressional districts. So that's where things stand right now. Biden still is in the lead as far as the electoral college vote. 87 more votes, 87 more electoral college votes to go that have not been called. And Joe Biden or whomever needs to reach the magic number of 270 electoral college votes in order to become president. Rashana out of North Philly calling in for a reality check. Rashana?
Hello, how are you? This
How
is
are
my
you doing?
first time calling your show.
Okay,
I've
thank
called
you.
other shows, but
Thank you.
I was looking at the electoral college, and you just said it was 238. Now, when I woke up and was listening to Solomon Jones, it was 238. Then I turned on CNN just now. It says 224 for Biden. How does that jump from 238 down to 224?
I'll explain that too. So, so you have right now 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You have 9 different news organizations which are providing their own electoral college calls or estimates for us, right? And this is what I was saying yesterday, especially last night. The gold standard, the global gold standard, in fact, the official shot caller for U.S. elections has always been for the past 170 years, and they've always been very professional and on mark when they do this, is the Associated Press. And when the Associated Press says that 238 electoral college votes are for Joe Biden, that means that 230 electoral college votes have been called for Joe Biden. AP is very, very good. In fact, all the other news organizations, including CNN, they're trying to be like AP, and they're just still not as good at it as AP is. And I know this for a fact. I have someone very close to me who worked for AP for a long time, and I'm very familiar with that methodology. And so they're the gold standard. That's what we go by. So if AP's not saying it, Ms. Rashana, then it hasn't happened yet. Does that help?
Yeah, that helps. Yeah. Okay, I just turned on the 12 o'clock news on ABC.
Right.
And they got Biden as 225. But like you said, that's still not accurate.
That's
So
inaccurate.
It's actually
Yeah.
238.
238. Associated Press. I stand by that. That's a hill I'm always ready to die on when it comes to those electoral college vote calls. I'm very, 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 very extremely confident in AP's ability. Remember back in 2004 when John Kerry was running against George Bush, and there was some confusion in Ohio, and while all the other news organizations were like, John Kerry got it, and AP was like, nope. State, they were like, it's not called yet. They was like, we still got votes to count. That's AP. These other news for what it's worth, AP is one of they're old school. They're like old school professional journalists. Hey, it's not news yet. Stick to the facts. They're not doing commentary. They're not rushing to be first. They're like, it's got to be right, and that's AP. So I'm very familiar with how they operate. And they're pros, they're professionals. Not perfect, but they are professionals when it comes to this. So yeah, if you don't see, look for AP, look for Associated Press, which is hard because AP, they're not as visible, like they don't have their own cable news channel, but they are respected. So yeah.
Okay,
I hope that helps.
Great,
yeah, try not to watch too much cable TV.
Yeah, you did say that. Don't
I'm serious.
Yeah.
Turn it off if you
I became a
can.
member too this week because of the Nick Tarafello.
Yeah, Nick T's back. Right.
Yeah, because I didn't know when I was going to become a member, and I said I'll try it this time.
Thank you.
When are you going to be mailing out the stuff? The membership.
You know, call what is it, 215-425-7875. You know, call the station and find it. I couldn't tell you. I'm not involved in that. But
I keep calling, but they're not. Maybe I'm calling the wrong number. I don't know. I can't get an answer. You got to leave a message. Nobody's answering the phone.
Okay. Well, you know, everybody's going through. It's a tough moment. We're all going through the pandemic, and so we have to operate very differently and safely. You know, so WRD has to do that and adjust just like everyone else. And people are working remotely out of an abundance of caution and being safe, because you know we don't want people to get sick. So, but yeah, I think it's 215-425. Just keep calling. I'll pass that along too, and I'm sure somebody's listening in right now and just you know, making sure they stay on top of that. But Ms. Rashana, thank you for signing up to become a WURD member, because then you make outlets like this, like WURD, you make us stronger, and then you give us the ability, you and other members, you make us become more independent, and you make us stronger to give us the ability to provide you or deliver you that responsible journalism. Right, so that you're not getting on those cable news outlets who are being, frankly, really irresponsible right now. But you know, you get that here with WURD. So the more people support that, the stronger we become to be able to deliver that kind of responsible product. That product that's also tailored for you, that provides you with conversations that you're concerned about, right? Or conversations that you're a part of. So I thank you so much for that, Ms. Rashana, and I know Nick T appreciates that as well. So I just want to say, you know, thank you on behalf of the WURD family for doing that, for signing up, and thanks for calling in. Thanks for listening in too. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. Phone lines are open at 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Just some Senate results, quick Senate results. Lindsey Graham, incumbent senator in South Carolina, was able to hold off a significant challenge from Jamie Harrison. Jamie Harrison did not end up being South Carolina's second black senator, and was a very just Jamie Harrison was a formidable candidate, at least on paper. And in terms of fundraising, but he was not able to beat Lindsey Graham last night. That race was called, but Lindsey Graham was able to beat Jamie Harrison by a significant margin, 56% to 42%. So that happened there. And it was a lot of high voter turnout in South Carolina, but just Jamie Harrison wasn't able to do it for a variety of reasons there. So we were really watching that race closely. You know, my best to him. So, you know, maybe at some point, I think the future is definitely bright for Jamie Harrison, but, you know, maybe at some later point. Another race we were watching was Mike Espy, hoping to become the first elected black senator in the state of Mississippi. I think the last black senator was appointed, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, I hope I'm not off on that. But Mike Espy was running again, second time in a couple of years, running against Cindy Hyde-Smith, the incumbent. He was unable to win in Mississippi, 58% to 40%. But these are states, Mississippi, South Carolina, these are states with massive black populations. And so Democrats just not doing a very good job at all of tapping into or mobilizing or motivating these huge pockets. I mean, Mississippi has the highest percentage. It's nearly 40%. It does have a 40%. 40% of the Mississippi population is black. So, you know, a state like that, Mike Espy, and also where the demographics are slowly changing, Mike Espy should be able to win that. So, like, just Democrats not taking that race as seriously. Another thing, too, is like what was missed in South Carolina. A lot of money was going into that state. I know Jamie Harrison was working hard. So, like, what was missed there? Also, Alabama, Doug Jones, who had won a couple of years ago, won back in 2000, a few years ago, back in 2017, as a result of higher black voter mobilization. And, you know, Democrats just lost it. Auburn University football coach Tom Tuberville won, bested Doug Jones, so 60 to 40. So that was a drubbing, so to speak. So yeah, that's happening there. But Georgia, two Senate races still not called. Incumbent David Perdue trying to fend off Democrat John Ossoff, and you know, could get a black senator out of Georgia as well. Right now, currently, Reverend Ralph Warnock is ahead, 32%, but he might have to go into a runoff because that's the way Georgia works, you need 50% plus in order to avoid a runoff. Let me go to Jacob out of Alney, who's calling in for a reality check. Jacob.
Hey, peace be unto you, Brother Ellison. How you doing?
Hey, how are you doing, sir?
All right, brother. Well, one thing, I'm relieved, man. Look, the American people have spoken, right? And there's no need to be on edge now, because now you have to wait, for the results of this thing. Because a lot of times I think, and you know what? I don't like to blame Democrats for a lot of different things, because I believe the Democratic Party has pulled together and did the best that they could do. I mean, yes, we can all do better in anything after we've done it. But, to keep beating them down, because they can't control. I talked to a African-American brother who was proud that he voted for Trump. You can't help because they're black, they drink the Kool-Aid, And the polls never been the reality. They don't have no crystal ball that they can tell you exactly what's going down. So we can only put so much faith in polls. I mean, since Patrick was talking about sports, in football, there's a movie, Any Given Sunday. Most games that the Eagles should sweep up the ground with people, they lose, right?
Yeah.
So, you never know till you try it, But we got to stop running scared, man. One of my friends called me last night. Trump done won. Trump done won. So I'm looking, I said, well, what are you watching? Fox. I said, well, you drinking that poison Kool-Aid,
Yeah.
Stop drinking the poison Kool-Aid and you won't be sick, and you'll stop
being
scared.
And honestly, Fox, even on Fox News, they are mirroring Associated Press. They're going with Associated Press Electoral College. So even if you turn on Fox News right now, you're going to see the exact same thing AP is saying. Biden is in the lead in the Electoral College.
Yeah, but
so it's just fascinating, that like even you're going to see that on their chyrons on the screen. It's like Trump hasn't won. I mean, yeah, they're probably going to play more of Trump's talking points and clips of him saying that he won, but he hasn't won. Yeah, it's not done.
Yeah. And when have you ever known that a president calls the election? Have you ever seen that in your life?
I've no, that's not the way it works.
Again, I heard somebody say this morning, that's no more than like a troll on the internet saying some stupid things, because that's stupid. And we all know that. But we got to hang in there. But look, I heard Sultan Ahmed. Man, look, that brother been fighting in the black community since before he even got the Sultan Jihad Ahmed thing together. And he has some good plans, man, that would help us out. And I'm glad that one thing, he's sticking to it. He don't give up. And that's a good brother. That brother, he keeps on until you get to, and that's what we have to do as Democrats, as black people. We have to keep trying to move the mountain one stone at a time if we got to do it, and we'll get it done. Because life ain't never been no crystal stair for me. Am I right?
Right, exactly.
Why do we keep on, just keep doing what we got to do. If you know where we are in time, I don't care if Trump did it again. We know better now how to get our piece of this American pie. I know that.
Right,
so, look, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. Let's go ahead on and wait for the results, and we could be dancing and happy after this, right? So it's over. Take it, like I said, exhale, people. Stop running scared, and know that there's a mighty force that we can't see. That I used to sing, he got the whole world in his hand. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let me let you go, brother. Thank you.
I appreciate you, Jacob. No, thanks so much. Thanks for those thoughts. 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. So, this is where like facts are important, especially at this stage. Don't get caught up in. I know I'm not. I'm really not. Do not get caught up in watching cable TV all day and getting caught up in the speculation. Just go about your lives and hold your family close, and just be as prepared for what is on the other side as you can possibly be. You know, that's really like the best advice that I can give right now. Depending on what the outcome is, I think that this is a call to folks, you know, particularly in the political and media space, and then we're talking about the Black community and how the Black vote has behaved, as well, at least according to some initial exit polling data. And we're still not going to get a clear, like final, complete picture of that until months from now. So because then we're going to have to, you know, take more surveys, you know, see kind of what the a lot of those right now at this moment uncounted mail ballots, what they show. You know, so we're still going to have, we still don't have a full grasp of like how this election played out. We know it's historic. We do know based on you know, the votes that have been counted, that Joe Biden is projected to receive more votes for president than any other candidate in U.S. election history. So we do know that's happening, but you know, we have to see how that all shakes out as far as the Electoral College is concerned. So, and yeah, and the polling industry is going to have to go through its own sort of soul searching right now. But yeah, just this is all about facts. Like, you know, wait to comment on this, or wait to, you know, have conversations with people and get into heated arguments about who won, who didn't win. Wait until it's called. And so, like this, the presidential race has not been called. We already know the type of president that we have, and we know his personality. He's going to talk. You know, he's going to beat his chest. He's going to put all kinds of bluster out there, and he's going to, you know, try to okie doke folks as much. That's what he does. I mean, he's a con man. So, you know, like, you know, he plays the con and he does it very well. So I think, you know, last night, you know, doing this early on, I think Biden made a very good step in terms of grabbing the narrative first and saying, hey, you know what, we've still got some time here. He did that. You know, he was making a statement shortly after, you know, things kind of settled down a bit and things went into limbo, and then we weren't going to know what the vote count would be. But, you know, he grabbed the narrative last night and was just like, hey, listen, we still got some ways to go. We knew that this wasn't going to, you know, end on this night, you know, particularly with so much early voting participation. So I think that, you know, in terms of, you know, the messaging and the optics, you know, a few points go on the board for Biden for at least managing that situation and getting ahead of it and starting that conversation about patience first before the president did, because the president's not talking about being patient. In fact, he's saying, like, don't count the ballots. You know, he's making it seem like these are votes still coming in. No, these were votes that were already submitted. So they're not, there's no like votes still trickling in. These are ballots. These are things that people had already submitted. Most states confirm and verify when they've received the ballot. So like this is not a case of, oh, you know, things have been extended, or, you know, they're trying to, like, you know, he's saying, you know, they're trying to steal or cheat the election. That's just not the case. That's not what's going on. All right, let's take a break, and then when we come back, we'll talk about election security with election security advocate Jennifer Cohn. Let's see what she's been watching and what she saw happen last night. I know she has some concerns, so we're going to bring her on next. She is scheduled to talk with us next here on Reality Check 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Just one more step. You got it.
You're doing great. This is the sound of a nationally ranked top rehabilitation hospital, home to the largest collection of robotics in the United States, where we continually exceed patient expectations, because no injury is too severe or too minor for our care.
There you go.
This is the sound of success. Moss Rehab. Challenge accepted.
Livelihood. The new initiative from WURD Radio, connecting Philadelphians to jobs, entrepreneurship opportunities, small business resources, and financial literacy. Visit WURDworks.com right now and take the next step in your professional journey.
Work, 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 work. To me, I be work.
Livelihood is supported by the Nightland Fest's Local News Transformation Fund, Borealis Philanthropies Racial Equity and Journalism Fund, and the Solutions Journalism Network, keeping you informed. As a community service, WURD Radio and the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium wants to keep you informed about where you can get no-cost, barrier-free COVID-19 testing this week. Thursday, November 5th, from 3 p.m. till 7 p.m. at 1312 Willow Street, Norristown, Pennsylvania. And Saturday, November 7th, from 12 noon till 3 p.m. at Victory Christian Fellowship, 5220 Whitby Avenue in Philadelphia. Stay informed and stay well with WURD Radio.
96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Reality Check
With Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio
and WURDradio.com.
All right, welcome back I think we're still waiting on Jenny Cohn. She's not ready yet, so we'll just open up the phone lines, 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. Let me take Woody out of Winfield. He's calling for a reality check. Woody?
Well, I'll tell you, man, if I don't check reality, speeding at your speed, you'll get me kind of dizzy. Now, my father used to say years ago, don't spin your tires, you know, wait until because you're burning up the rubber and you ain't going nowhere.
Right.
This is what we're doing as people, because something happened different. We just have to further and make an adjustment to wherever we are. So if you got a problem, make the adjustment. People have to learn to settle down, but because of this highly technological society we live in, we want everything with a push button right away. So all we have to do is wait on God, because I know He's going to have the final answer, but we should always be in preparation of ourselves, as I shared with you before, that preparation. Now, the brother that you talked to, Brother Sultan Ahmed, with the $600 million social bond, I think is excellent. And I've been working with him for years. You know, he's been my customer, and he's a very good person. I think you would tie in with him very well, and I applaud you for being a political analyst, you know, for my buddy Al Sharpton. If you get a chance, make sure you holler at him and let him know I miss him, you know, and I just sent hello to him. So I just wanted to share that with you.
I'll let him know. Yeah, I'm supposed to go on there later today.
Yeah, look, Charles, you're young, and that's what you're supposed to be doing, and you're doing it with your heart. That's why I love your grandmom. She produced a great person in you. All you have to do is never forget her. This is what our problem is. A lot of our children don't sit at the feet of the elders anymore. Everything's a push a button. They don't actually listen to the wisdom and knowledge that bring understanding. So that's all I'm saying. I appreciate you for doing that. And I'm going to applaud you again for a great program. But you got to make sure you get your schedule together, because I hung up the first time because I thought the person was coming on.
Right. Yeah, it's just there's a lot going on. I mean, it's
I'm
it's
watching you, brother. It's okay, because I see what you're doing, and your heart is in it. That's what I like about you. Keep your heart in there, and remember, Brother Sultan Ahmed, he has a great heart, but he's even got a greater mind. So please check him out, and I will hopefully be working together with you and him.
No, I was really intrigued by that concept. That's something I say, because you know we always have you know the city introducing these ballot initiatives, right? You know, asking for like the approval of municipal bonds for things like municipal building upgrades, okay, or for you know infrastructure projects, or you know for all sorts of you know frankly what ends up you know kind of unfolding into patronage projects for the city. You know, but I like that whole concept of okay, a bond that's just a direct investment in economically distressed communities, like you know. And a significant amount at that, like, because that money comes back to the city, particularly when you're putting that money directly in the pockets of those distressed communities. Then it's like it's just basic economics. So to me, you know, the city would actually get more economic growth out of something like that versus municipal building upgrades or upgrades to certain specific agencies or municipal services, right? So I just think that's a wonderful idea, and that's something we should definitely look at and definitely work on. So I look forward to hearing from Sultan, from Brother Sultan. I would like, that's something I would like to explore and kind of work on and see what we can do. I think we're still working on Jenny Cohn. We'll just keep the phone lines open at 215-634. You know, folks are folks had a late night. There's a lot. There's a lot that they're engaged in. There's a lot of work. So we just have to, just have to be patient with some of our experts and guests who are coming on. I totally get it. So schedules might have to be like reconfigured a little bit, and on the fly sometimes. So, but that's fine. I'm okay with that. So Jenny, hopefully we'll get her soon. 215-634, get her take on what happened yesterday. 215-634-8065, toll free, 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. But let's get your thoughts. And I do see Sultan. You did send me Sultan Ahmad sent me that email. Thank you, Brother Sultan. Appreciate you. 215-634-8065. Toll free. It is 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. What are some things that that yesterday does tell us? Just kind of based on what we see thus far. One is that we do have a country that's still sharply divided along partisan lines. So that's one. Definitely that was emphasized and underscored, especially as like results started coming in last night. Even despite pandemic, despite the economic meltdown that we're all experiencing, despite all of that, people still very much all about their political tribes. People still very much about wearing their team gear. And so, we see a lot, particularly on the right side of things, or on the political right side of things, particularly on the Republican side of things. Despite the pandemic, despite the just a horrific number of lives lost, and despite the economic tailspin that the country is going through, and also despite our lowered positioning on the global stage, that's also very alarming. And though we haven't seen any major global crisis spark up yet that have challenged this president, that's still worrisome. That's something that's alarming, and that we have to kind of worry about as kind of the world waits to see what's gonna unfold in this election, the presidential election, also in the Senate race as well. So we do see that. So that's one. Two, so despite all that, there's some cultural reflection too on like the meaning of American. Like, what is the meaning of American today? All right, and we as Black people, we have like very unique, special, and problematic experience with that definition of what it is to be an American. So we added some more to that definition of American, right? And you want to be proud to be an American. You want to be proud, because that's your home base, that's your home team, that's your big collective kind of national home. You want to feel that pride, but it becomes very difficult to do so, right? Particularly when you're in our position. But one new sort of sub-definition that we were able to add to that overall definition is that Americans are very selfish. So it's like the United States of selfishness. So there's a lot of that that we saw, kind of with this vote, in terms of just still so many people voting for the current president, voting for like the current political status quo. That's the very troubling, mismanaging status quo, malfeasance and corrupt status quo that is in place, and people being fine with that. Let's take a break because we're going to get Jennifer Cohn. So I'm going to just take a quick break. Thanks, Troy. And we'll be right back with Jennifer Cohn.
Reality Check
with Charles Ellison.
Right now on WURD Radio
and WURDradio.com.
Okay, we're back at it. We got Jenny Cohn, election security advocate. Go to @JennyCohn1. She's been real busy, especially these past couple of months. And I know she was busy yesterday and over the evening. So I know it's been a long, may have been a long night for you, Jenny. I know it's going to be a long week because remember we said, do not think of it in terms of election day, election night. It is election week. May even go, I don't know, could it go into next week? We'll see. We'll talk to Jenny Cohn here, who's joining us by Skype. Jenny, what's good?
Hi, how's it going?
All right, good. So, how did everything go? I know you already saw some worrisome signs over the horizon. Where to begin, right? Voting machine glitches, still some issues. Now we have like this ballot counting situation. How do you feel that's going? Particularly as we're waiting on calls in significant battleground states.
Well, what we had hoped to avoid was a situation where it was close enough that Trump and his allies, such as Karl Rove, would be able to weaponize the vote by mail system and drag out the counting or some sort of fake dispute in the courts. And it looks like, it's not clear that we're going to be able to avoid that. So in that sense, I would say, I'm kind of concerned. I am, regardless of the presidency, I'm concerned about all of it, because anything that deviated from expectations. And it was my understanding the Biden campaign expected to win Florida handily. I'm concerned about anywhere where it deviated from expectations because we still do not have a system to verify these outcomes. The Republicans, lawmakers, killed the SAFE Act in Congress, which would have required that we actually verify electronic results with robust manual audits. That's really the only way to do it because the software is proprietary, and they killed that. And the only two states that are conducting robust manual audits are Colorado and Rhode Island, and even they are only doing it for just a few races on the ballot. So we are looking at, we're just taking the word of whatever these county central tabulators are spitting out at us, and we should it should not be taboo anymore to express healthy skepticism about some of these numbers because they are unverified. So unless journalists are comfortable touting unverified results, which they have been doing for over a decade, I don't want to hear about it. So I'm going to be expressing some skepticism about these numbers. And no, I don't know that there was hacking. That's the point, is that we don't have a system that lets us know, and it's infuriating.
Yeah, no, it is infuriating. Don't get me started on like these big mainstream media outlets.
Yeah,
and like a lot of the irresponsible.
Oh yeah, I didn't mean you when I said media. Sorry.
Oh no, and hey,
no shade.
No, definitely not. I mean, I'm not like, I didn't start off. Political strategy work is what I started off in. I don't know what these folks are being taught in journalism schools. I honestly do not know. I just went off on a rant earlier on about that. Just the whole notion of projections on an election night for this very unique, unusual moment that we're living in. That really infuriated me last night. I just went to bed after a while because I'm like, why are we doing projections? Why are we, like it's not done. It's not complete. And
yeah, I mean,
Go ahead, Jenny.
No, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I interrupted you. That's okay.
So, in Florida, Miami-Dade is concerning. It's sort of as background. They were one of the states that, as reported as of August 2019, they were connecting their precinct scanners and county central tabulators to the internet on election night to, in order to receive modem transmissions from the precincts of their results on election night, which almost, I would say virtually all election security experts, including some who are more lax than I would like on other issues, recommend against this practice. And they refused to not do this. And I mean, last I heard, they were still going to do this, and they were denying that they were connecting to the internet. I wrote an article just recently that was published in the New York Review of Books that gives an overview of security concerns, and that is one of them. I was going to call out Miami-Dade specifically, but one of the experts I spoke with said, well, you never know, maybe they changed at the last minute. They won't say. I don't personally expect that they changed at the last minute. Maybe they did. They won't tell us. So we just don't have a transparent system. And so Miami-Dade, in 2016, according to this post, which does have links and pictures, Hillary Clinton got 624,000 votes. 2020, Biden got 617,000 votes, which is sort of consistent. But Trump increased by 200,000 votes, from 333,000 to 532,000. Now, yes, it's possible the Cuban vote all turned out for Trump in these huge hordes. It is possible. But I would like to look at that. And, you know, we took my group, protectourvotes.com. We had volunteers taking photographs of precinct results, and we're going to compare them to reported results. And if there's any discrepancies, we will make a lot of noise about that. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, without a manual audit, we can't say that the precinct results themselves were correct. And another problem is the 19th district race, House race in Florida, apparently was unexpectedly went to the Republican. And the state is not, they said, attributed it to an election day surge of almost 80,000 votes for the Republican. But they will not give the names of the people who supposedly voted on election day so that they can be confirmed until after certification of the results. After the results are certified, it's really almost impossible to do an election challenge of any sort. And so we have this unverifiable system. And in many ways, I actually am not as tired as I have been before, and I'm not as exhausted, because I was proactive. I was trying to prevent the situation we're in now. I will do whatever, to verify the aspects we can to the extent we can, but the time to kill ourselves was really before the election.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jen, I did want to ask you about that. Like, what kind of does your future look like in continuing this fight, right? Because I don't want this to just you coming on this program. I don't want it to just end after this election, because I think this is going to be an ongoing, enduring fight. Like I was having this conversation earlier with a voting rights advocate, voting rights expert down in Georgia. And she was saying, this is something we're going to have to continue this fight, continue this struggle. That also applies to election security, because that's all about voting rights. And so, what's that look like? I mean, what's that?
Me? I don't know what it's going to look like for me. I mean, I promised my family that after the election, but really after, we get a swearing in, that I would dial it way back. I haven't had any institutional funding of any sort, and I've done it for 3 years. What a 3 years, unexpected, avocation for the past 3 years, where I was just going to be the world's best mom. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not planning. I want to write a book, actually, a short one about the history of the elections. But I don't imagine I'll keep doing it to the extent I've been doing after we have, unless something changes for me.
Do those changes or those needed changes and tweaks and adjustments to election security, does that need to happen as well? Is that like a 50 state, state by state capital battle? In terms of Yeah, Congress has authority over at least federal elections. This is sort of the push-pull that we have, but they haven't exerted it because Republicans have too much control over Congress, and conveniently it looks like they will again, at least as far as the Senate. So I don't know that we'll be able to get it passed federally. I mean, certainly constitutionally that's allowed at the federal level. Yeah. So it may have to be state by state. I don't see it happening federally unless we really amplify these concerns and get the Republican voters worried about it, because I think Republican voters actually, as much as I disagree with them on policy issues and what I see as moral issues, frankly, ethical issues on cheating, they worry about cheating too. And if they knew that voting machines were connected to the internet, I don't think they'd be very happy about that. Yeah. We've been talking with Jennifer Cohn, election security advocate, longtime election security advocate. Go to protectourvotes.com. That's her ongoing project as far as election, or hashtag Protect Our Votes. At Jenny Cohn, COHN1, is on Twitter. So you can catch her there. She's highly engaged, got great information. So Jenny, we'll continue to talk. Having you on weekly, talking offline too, see what's going on, see what's there, because it's just an important issue, that election security, voter suppression.
I'll keep gathering info.
Thank you. Yeah, this has always been useful, and really appreciate you coming on every week. And so looking forward to talking with you next week.
Me too.
All right.
Much.
Take
Thanks
care.
So much. Have a great day. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye. Get some rest. All right, let's take a break, and when we come back, Phone lines open at 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
Pico has many ways to help you lower your energy usage and save money at home. Here's one. If your heating and cooling system is more than 20 years old, it may be time for your contractor to replace it with a high-efficiency Energy Star certified model. You'll get a rebate from Pico and save on your monthly electric bill. You'll find a list of new heating and cooling system rebates at pico.com/rebates. Or you can call 1-888-5-PICO-SAVE for all the details. Plus, find instant discounts on smart thermostats and more at pico.com/marketplace. There's free shipping on orders over $49.
Jefferson Health offers no-cost COVID-19 testing at St. Raymond of Pinafort Church. Testing is on Thursdays and Saturdays. For testing hours and more information, call 1-833-533-3463.
WURD Radio presents the following wellness tip to support our listeners with mindfulness and motivation
as we continue to navigate the pandemic together.
Hi, this is Halana, your resident health and wellness coach, with tips to help you stay well. Many of us have heard this term before, but may not know what it really means. Compassionate living brings mindfulness and peace to the center of your daily life. Compassionate living can look like this. Number 1, be gentle with yourself and those around you. Number 2, choose to speak kindly to others, even when you're upset. Number 3, become a good listener and practice empathy at home and at work. We sometimes think in order to live with compassion, we have to become someone else. Not so. In fact, allowing peacefulness to be at the center of our daily interactions is something we can practice every day. Go ahead and try it today. Stay well with WURD. Happy living.
Stay well with WURD. Connect with us at wordradio.com.
Check
with Charles Ellison right now on WURD Radio
and WURDradio.com.
All right, welcome back to Reality Check. Phone lines are open at 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. 215-634-8065, toll free 866 866-361-0900. So these are currently Senate races that we're waiting on, still to be called, waiting for a call in Arizona. Mark Kelly running a challenge against the incumbent Marty McSally. So Mark Kelly looking good. He's the Democrat. So right now he's looking good at this point, about an estimated 82% of votes counted there. Also waiting for a call in Georgia. David Perdue running against John Ossoff, waiting for a call there. 97% of votes counted. David Perdue ahead about 3 points. John Ossoff is the Democrat. Ossoff, is the Democrat. So there was another candidate by the name of, they run these crowded elections, like they have like this kind of open primary-like system down there in Georgia, even for their general election phase. And so if a candidate isn't unable to get, I think it's 51%, the majority in that, like, then they have to go into a runoff. We're probably going to have to go into a runoff for Reverend Ralph Warnock, black pastor, black preacher in Georgia, who is running a very spirited kind of come from behind campaign against Kelly Loeffler. So it looks like that's going to go into runoff. We could be able to call the other Georgia Senate race, because there's 2 Senate seats up for grabs there. David Perdue to John Ossoff. North Carolina still waiting on that. That's very tight. Democrat Cal Cunningham running against Tom Tillis, so waiting on that result there. And in Maine, I'm watching that race very closely. Incumbent Susan Collins fending off a formidable challenge from Maine House Speaker Sarah Gideon, so that has not been called yet. And in Michigan, black Republican John James running against white Democratic incumbent Gary Peters. John James, that's 93% of votes counted in Michigan. So let's see how that goes. John James, another intelligent, young, good-looking black Republican, but very Trump-aligned. And so, you know, I had heard some concerns, some worries from folks up in Michigan that they were worried that like black folks up there in Michigan, especially in places like Wayne County, Detroit, would drink the Kool-Aid of John James. So we'll see. It has made that race a lot tighter than Democrats want it to be. So Democrats need to win 51 seats total, need to get 51 seats total, need to net at least 3 if Biden wins, 4 if he doesn't, to get control of the Senate. Right now, Democrats now have 45 total seats in the Senate compared to Republicans 46. So that's where things stand right now. So, you know, as these races are called, maybe those races will get called soon, because they're happening in a number of battleground states where we've had a lot of heavy and very tense ballot counts going on. Let me go to Junior out of Cheltenham, who's calling in for a reality check. Junior or JR?
Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's tense. Everybody's, you know, trying to, you know, make the best out of this puzzle. But I'll tell you what happened to me in the last election, the last presidential election when Trump won. There was a big contingent of Hispanic voters that seem to be disillusioned to the effect that they're going to get a seat at the table, you know, similar to what, you know, Ice Cube and Lil Wayne is trying to do, trying to get a seat at the table. But I can't understand why they're so disillusioned to think that they are going to get a seat at the table rather than to be the meal at the table. Because let's face it, he's shown the Hispanic voters, you know, what he thinks of the relationship that or the lack of a relationship that they have, you know, similar to us, you know, and we as a community, you know, we embrace, you know, the Hispanics as our own, and you know, we have a similar culture. They all, you know, everybody's.
Well, I'll say this too, Jared. It's a good point. I think that, and I go into it a little bit, breaking down the exit polling data at our companion magazine, thebnote.com, thebnote.com. But not all Hispanic voters, not all Latinos, Hispanics are brown. That's the first. You know, that people have been running under this assumption that, and I know I get a little bit of flack for folks, but this is just the truth. I mean, this is just facts. Latino is not really like this whole big racial group. You know, Latino is the language group, and then there's all sorts of cultural and racial groups that are a part of that Latino, that language, that Latino speaking or Spanish speaking diaspora. So you've got white Latinos, just like you got black Latinos. You have white people who speak Spanish. I have neighbors. One of them is from Spain, which is where the Spanish language was conceived. And she looks like like an elderly white lady. She speaks Spanish. She speaks Spanish like, you know, she's from Spain. She grew up in Madrid. So, you know, not all, we have to start, you know, understanding that there are all sorts of, you know, rich, different texture culture groups. And so they're all not thinking the same, right? You know, so you know, you got Mexicans, you got Chicanos, right? And so, and really when you look at the voting data, you see that folks like Mexicans and Puerto Ricans went more against Trump than Cubans, right? So, you know, it depends on kind of where they're coming from in that Latin diaspora. Black Latinos or Afro Latinos, they know they're black, but they speak Spanish, and they also go through a hard time. The racism in Latin America is really intense. You can make the argument more intense than it is up here. So that's what that's from.
And my suggestion is that we, you know, form a better bond, and you know, and try to have a more prosperous or progressive relationship, because it's like divide and conquer there. You know, Trump is using that, you know, as his tool, you know, an effective tool to
and some of us fell into it.
Power. And
yeah, you're right. You're right.
I just challenge Tom Perez and the rest of the black leaders and Hispanic leaders to be more progressive-minded on issues and agendas, so that this doesn't continue to be, you know.
Right. Let me let you go, JR, because I want to make sure I take some other folks because I got limited time. But no, you make a very good point. let me go to Tony out of North Philly. You got 2 minutes, Tony. Calling for a reality check. How you doing?
All right, solid, brother. Thanks for taking my call. But look, brother, here's how it is. As Afro-Americans, we got unfinished business with what's going on. And all immigrants that come here, they have to understand that. What we going through, we talking about something from 1619. We have what we doing right now. This is unfinished business for us. Now, if they don't want to, like in my neighborhood, when Latinos are an influx of them, they don't speak to nobody. They don't even look at you. So that tells me, although they might be brown or whatever, they don't consider them. They say I'm not a Afro-American. I'm not acting one of them. That's what I'm saying. But all I can say is, look, we hold our head high. We did what we supposed to do. We stood up for democracy and the Constitution, and we oppose blatant fascism in this country. Peace.
Okay. Peace. All right. Thank you, Tony. Appreciate you. Titan out of New Jersey calling for a reality check. Titan, you got 2 minutes.
All right. Hey, how you doing today, Brother Charles?
How you doing, brother? All right. Good.
Good. I called because my position is no matter who the president is, it's very important that we work together as a people.
Yeah.
Make sure that we have our platforms and the different things that we decide to act on. Me, myself, I decided to dedicate myself to making sure that blacks receive proper health care, and that covers from babies to our elders. And, that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah. I appreciate you. And that work's going to be important, Titan. Once again, that's why I've been telling people, like, get the planning and get activated on that local state level, which is that should have always been the plan, right? But that's going to provide us more of that buffer that we need to that layer of protection in the event that things still spiral into an unsustainable mess in the nation's capital. So, we just have to, I think, and doing that kind of work, that grassroots work, that very intentional, deliberative grassroots work that you just described, that's going to be really important. And, identifying what your lane is as well, right? Identifying what issue inspires you or sparks you into action. What issue are you concerned about the most? What are the issues we need to focus on and do more intentional work in to make this community better? So, like I said, one thing that stood out in this election, we understand that, like, Americans are just, the American community is a lot more selfish than we had expected. So now we need to, those of us like myself and Titan and Tony and JR and Jacob and even George and Maurice and all people, the WURD family, we're all about community. That's why we support and listen to a station like WURD. So that's so now we need to do what we got to do. Folks want to be selfish and want to be frankly un-American or don't want to be about the community, want to be sort of anti-black in their own special, unique, different ways, even while they are, claiming they black. That's on them. So we know what we have to do to get ourselves back on a better track. And so, I appreciate that. Thanks so much, Titan, for saying that. We've got the source with the Black Women's Leadership Council. That's coming up next. Continue with #WURD on politics. I'm Charles Ellison, continuing special election coverage. I'm actually continuing that coverage live here on WURD from Washington, D.C., by the way, from the nation's capital. So WURD has been providing that since yesterday in Washington, D.C., so where I will remain giving you that special coverage here in the nation's capital and keeping an eye on things here. Things have been tense, but still, relatively calm in the nation's capital. So stay off that cable TV, y'all. Seriously, stay off that cable TV. Go out and take a walk because things are kind of sunny. The weather's kind of chill, and yeah, get some air. Get away from that cable TV, seriously. And then we'll see you tomorrow, Thursday, 10 a.m. sharp, for more reality check, for more special election coverage here on the home of Black Talk Media. I'm Charles Ellison, at Ellison Report on Twitter.com. Thank you, Troy. Thank Troy Wilmore, too. He's been doing some really good work, did some hard work yesterday during Election Day, keeping that live coverage going on, especially in Philly. So thanks. It's good to have him back. And stay tuned in for The Source Philly and beyond. I want you to stay sharp, stay smart, be patient, and be safe, okay? I'll talk to you.